world of itself is doomed.
Hello, Freedomizers. Nickie Nix here with you on this beautiful, beautiful Wednesday afternoon. And you're joining me with Freedomizer Radio as we try to rise above dehumanization, a major issue in the U.S. and worldwide. It has definitely been spreading, but there's a new front that has come about that shows that you can be human, that there are people here to support you, that there are people that can help you in your self-discovery, and that can help you learn how to be part of the world around you. Now then, we're going to be joined by a guest today, and let me see if I can find him real quick. Ooh, okay, hold on one second. I've got to go take care of my son's lunch. I do apologize. That is one thing about being here and having my 4-year-old nearby. I do apologize. What I'm going to do real quick is I'm going to actually play Johnny Cash real quick, Federal Reserve song, and I will be right back. And hopefully when I'm back, we will be joined by our guest, and we will continue. So Freedomizers, hang in there just for a second.
Federal Reserve, you've been living hell to me. You've been robbing me since 1913. You'll run the presses till the ink is dry. Long ago, I stopped asking why. Federal Reserve, I hate every inch of you. You robbed me and you cheated me through and through. Now I'm a poorer and more destitute man. Mr. Congressman, why can't you understand? Federal Reserve, what good do you think you do? Do you think we'll all be richer when you're through? Your dollars are no longer backed by gold, and your stone walls turn my blood a little cold. Federal Reserve, may you rot and burn in hell. May your walls fall and may I live to tell. May all the world reject your fake cash. You stole our wealth, but we can take it back. You stole our wealth, but we can take it back. You stole our wealth, but we can take it back.
All right, Freedomizers, just like the song says, we can take back this world, and it doesn't take much. And the overwhelming presence we see in the world around us is only something that is a front, that is a facade, that is meant there to confuse you, to make you look in a different direction, because what you don't see is what's happening in the background. What you don't see is that this opposing force that oppresses us, that keeps us in a state of fear, nothing more than bring like-minded individuals together. And that in itself is a very important thing that we should see. And we are joined today by Bruce Kettler. And Bruce Kettler here is a worldwide freedom and prosperity activist. He's also quite an experienced researcher as well. So, Bruce, would you like to say hi?
Hi there. You can hear me too well. I wasn't hearing you too well.
Yeah, we did.
I think we're going to have to use the telephone.
No problem. Just call that phone number and we'll start that way. All right, everybody. Bruce will be right back with us. So for right now, let's see. All right. For right now, let's actually talk about some of the things that Bruce has done. You can check out his website. They are listed above, and I'm about to add them into the chat room. Let's see. Here's one. Be sure to check that out. There's a lot of information there as well. And here's the second one. And of course, if anybody would like to join us here on air, you can call 347-324-3704 and just push 1 if you would like to talk. If not, you can stay in the queue and listen that way. There are many ways to do that. And you can also always check out all the other guests here at Freedomizer Radio. And you can find them at www.freedomizerradio.com. And yes, that is 2 R's, one for the end of Freedomizer and one for the beginning of radio. And it looks like Bruce is back with us. So hello, Bruce.
Hello there. Glad to be on. Thank you very much.
And I can hear you much better now.
Good. Yes, that's a satellite hookup. It has hiccups. The hookup has hiccups.
There you go. Would you like to give people a quick introduction on, I guess, your background, and we can go from there?
Oh, yes. I have 2 websites, worldpeacealliance.com, and it has dashes in between each word. And then there's wearechangeorfano.us. And rather than me spell it out, it's linked from the site on the links page. There's a picture of mountains, and click on it. So that should be sufficient for the We Are Change site, and I'm sure all your listeners, or many of them at least, are familiar with We Are Change, which is headquartered in New York City, where I was born.
Very nice. And now you're living out in the mountains in beautiful Colorado. And we've actually
Go
ahead.
Yes, been here a while and enjoying it a whole lot.
And we can actually help you with that, to know how you can actually escape the system and maybe have part of your own life to take care of and actually have responsibility and an influence on your own life.
Oh, yes. And today it's important that we not only have influence on our own lives, but we try the best we can to have influence on other people's lives. Because the way things look right now, we're going to be depending on each other a whole lot more. You know, the so-called elite have engineered a lot of the people to become isolated from one another, so they won't stand together. They've caused a split up of families. We used to have, 50 years ago, stable families in the world, in the United States, and now we have very unstable families, split up families due to the engineering of the global elite, so that they will have more power over us. And one of the things I pay a lot of attention to is the family unit on the World Peace Alliance website, because I feel like it's important. It's also important to learn to be self-sufficient. The globalists evidently still have a stranglehold on the economic system. And we need to learn how to grow food, get our own water, get it out of the ground, how to survive in the wilderness. If we have nothing but a backpack and we run out of food and we're out in the wilderness, we need to learn how to find water, how to get water out of the ground. And when we're in communities, we need to learn to barter with each other, especially the agricultural communities. You know, a doctor needs to learn how to give his services in exchange for food. People who have wells need to exchange their water for food from people who are growing it. People need to exchange their labor for food. They need to learn to do this. I think we ought to start before things get really bad so we can get used to it rather than diving in all of a sudden when the dollar drops in value drastically.
That is true. We all fear this great economic collapse. Yet there are communities even today that are constructing their own monetary system based on their value, but they decide to use what is appropriate for their own individual communities. And that in itself can show you that this is not such a terrible thing. It's not the end of the world. We're not going to go out and all go start rioting when we lose the dollar.
Well, right. Now, I need to quote somebody now to answer you or to reply to that. It was, the quote comes from, well, it doesn't matter who it was. What he said was, Napoleon Hill is his name. Every adversity has within it the seeds of an equivalent benefit. And I can already see the seeds of, well, that's almost a pun, seeds. The seeds of an equivalent benefit here are simply that we're going to eat better. If we're eating prosperous foods, we're certainly going to be better off having to struggle for our food because at least it'll be wholesome.
It's kind of silly when you look at it. We all are so scared. What happens if the grocery stores run out of everything on their aisles and, oh no, there's no more water? There's actually, I believe, currently 7 states that are trying to make it illegal for you to collect rainwater. Were you aware of that?
Yes, I've heard about that. That's all ridiculous. What people need to do is to live in a community that is 10th Amendment oriented, which means we don't follow no stinking laws from anybody except within our county. And we don't make any laws that cause people to starve or die of thirst. And we don't allow anybody to enforce any laws in our area that will cause anybody to die of thirst. And once you get a community like that, you'll just have a very self-sufficient community. Every community has within itself, I don't care where it is, except maybe New York City. Well, even New York City. Now, of course, this is really a stretch of imagination. I was born in New York City. But can you imagine a central park? Let's say everybody in the city, including all the cops and all the politicians, turned into really nice people. and you know, I mean, it's really far-fetched. But anyway, they have Central Park in the middle of Manhattan. Can you imagine they're growing food in Central Park and sharing it amongst each other?
And it doesn't take much. It doesn't take much space to grow much food. People are kind of, I guess, misconceived about that. One small plant can survive a lot more than you think.
Right. Well, no, surviving is not far-fetched. But New York City is far-fetched because, number one, the buildings are so high and there's so many people in the buildings that, you know, it's not like an open field full of people, you know, in houses. You know, it's like, you know, it's stacked up on top of each other. And Central Park is just one little square. And then you've got Manhattan, the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Long Island. Of course, there's parks in all of these various boroughs. And Staten Island particularly is a lot of open field area. But what I'm saying is that New York City is so corrupt that to say they're going to suddenly become not corrupt anymore is really, really, really hard to, even for me. I imagine all kinds of beautiful things. And I just came up with this thing about New York City just now. I never thought of this in my life. But if I was to, you know, think of the last place that it would happen, it would be New York City. And if it happens in New York City, you can pretty well figure we've been through a consciousness shift that definitely is going to cover the whole country, and especially the rural areas. But anyway, right now, the rural areas are struggling, many of them, to get their county commissioners and sheriffs on board with real survival.
That's true, and sheriffs actually used to have the final word when it came to communities. Sheriffs were the ones that could keep people out of their community.
Yes, there's a sheriff in Illinois who said he's the final arbiter of the when you go to foreclose a home, and he's actually the sheriff of that covers Chicago. And he said, and it's in, I've got the news article, he will not foreclose. He's the final guy. He's the one that actually does it. He will not foreclose on anybody's houses, period.
Good.
Can you imagine that? He did that. The sheriff in the same county that covers Chicago.
That is amazing, because that is such a large area in general. And I've seen actually some sheriffs in larger cities and even the governors coming forward and taking down red light cameras.
Oh, yeah, and there's another sheriff, his name is DeMeo. He's in Nevada. DeMeo, D-E-M-E-O. All you got to do is take DeMeo, put it on YouTube, plug it in. This guy had the federal government come in to take this guy's cattle. And they said, the feds said, we're going to bring our SWAT team. And he says, I have a SWAT team. You're going to have to meet my SWAT team on his land in order to take his cattle. In other words, he threatened the federal government with arms.
Can you imagine people showing up with automatic weapons to seize your cows?
Yeah, he threatened, well, he's got a huge county, and he's got a huge force of deputies. And when he got elected, and by the way, he's from Brooklyn, and he's still got a Brooklyn accent. So you've got to see a sheriff from out in the middle of, I mean, this guy's got a huge expanse of desert area, you know, and he's like way off of his turf when he's not in Brooklyn, you know. But, you know what I mean? He's got a Brooklyn accent. And one of the things he says while he's on there is he says, well, you can tell I'm not from these parts just by the way I talk, you know. Real strong Brooklyn accent, you know. And he went out there and got elected sheriff, and boy, he's towing the constitutional line 100%. And he's got the force to back himself up, short of them bringing jets with bombs or something, you know.
Well, it used to be that the military and police force actually remembered their oath. Now you have what's considered a fringe element within such classes that is called oath keepers, ones that actually sign paper and say that they will uphold what they swore an oath to protect this nation, not only from those that may come across our borders, because we so much do more than that, but to also protect from those that may be a tyrannical leading government, because now we have, instead the government says we're homegrown terrorists and turn the attention away from themselves.
Well, they're not winning that information war entirely. They seem to be gaining more ground with their lives to the police than the military. I think they're losing on the military front a whole lot, but they're losing somewhat on the police front. People have gotten some intelligence from inside the police forces, from the good people that are in the police forces, and some good people that are inside the military. Now, I have some information about this on my website. If you go to World Peace Alliance, by the way, that's in Google now without using the dashes, but it's a little hard to find. It's either the first or second page of Google. But World Peace Alliance, and then you click it on the links page, you know, to the Werfeno site, the We Are Change site. And then if there's any police and military or FBI, or I imagine maybe there might be an FBI guy, you know, or maybe CIA or something like that listening, I want you to know that they plan to wipe out 90% of the world, 80 to 90% of the world's population. Now, it's very unlikely that you're going to be one of the 10 or 20% that's supposed to live. And they're going to target you first before they even target me. So I want you people, I mean, if it gets to that point, because I don't anticipate it getting that bad, but if you're supporting that system, you're supporting your own death and lack of freedom and total slavery for your children and your children's children. They don't like you. They just use you. And I have all the information and all the documentation to back up what I just said from history, as well as what they've done and what they've written. Give you one good example. Henry Kissinger said, military men are just dumb, stupid animals. Now you can apply that to sheriffs, deputies, police. You can apply that to CIA, FBI. They don't need you. You know, ultimately their backup is foreign troops. That's their backup. That's the ones they want to actually leave standing. Foreign troops, not American troops. Foreign troops. They'll probably wipe out every American soldier if they were to get that far. And I've got the history and everything else to back this up. All you got to do is when you get to the We Are Change site, and if there's anybody listening here, you know, you're supposed to monitor these broadcasts, you know, in case you are, realize, they don't like you. The people running you don't like you. And you go and click it to police and military, you'll see exactly what I'm talking about. And for you police that have been brainwashed, I have the documents either linked to or on my site that they have given you to try to demonize people like me. And I'll tell you, there's a whole bunch of lies in there, and they're proven lies. Every documentation proves that the things that they tell you about us and how bad we're supposed to be are all lies. And, they lie to you, and, you can't really trust people that lie to you. You know that. So anyway, I just want to pass that along to the police and military. I always like to give that message to you people so you understand if you're not on our side, you're on the wrong side because we're on the right side. America was born of the United States Constitution. That's what made America. That's what America is. The word Constitution means what constitutes it. So the United States Constitution is the document that constitutes the United States. If you go against the Constitution, you're going against your country. And if you're killing your country, you're killing yourself and your ancestors. Not your ancestors. Your forebears, those that come after you. Well, you're not killing your forefathers. You're killing those that are coming after you. Your posterity, your children and your children's children. You're killing them. Maybe not literally, but you're killing their spirit, if they can't really live.
Yeah, you're limiting imagination and creativity.
Yeah, you're limiting their creativity. You're limiting your own creativity. You're limiting your own freedom. And one of the things that Alex Jones says to cops is, when they say, can I search your car? He starts talking about their children. And they'll say something like, what have my children got to do with this? He says, well, when you come in and you come into my car and search my car, you are killing your country. That means your children are going to have to live with what you have the precedent you have just set to be able to search people's cars and will, just for no reason at all. And so that's what you're doing. That's what you're doing to your children. And he said that's the rap he gives to the cops when they say, can I search your car? He's got an answer for everything.
Say no.
I think it's pretty good. I think it's pretty good. I make him think, hey, there's a lot of things that Alex does that I like. And that's one of them. And, by all means, make them think. Make them think about their kids. Make them think about what kind of a country their kids are going to be living in.
What example we're setting? What kind of a role model? Because that's exactly what police and those that have such power are supposed to represent. Not the opposite. Not an opposing force to come down and reprimand like a parent. No. They were meant to hold to the highest level so that you have someone to look up to, someone to trust.
Right, exactly. There are good police out there. They're mostly older guys. They're mostly in their 40s. And they have a hard time dealing with the new system. And from what I hear, what's reported through is that mostly the older guys get let go and they never get promoted. And the younger guys who are gung-ho and disobey the law, they get promoted. So
I apologize. One of my guests that has been here a couple of times, he wrote the book, Police, The Arresting Truth. He was a sheriff in several places. He's also worked for, his name's Frank Richardson. He also works for the school district. He now investigates police officers. He now investigates anything that goes against the republic. That's another thing most people get confused. They believe this is a democracy. Of course, that's what we've allowed it to become. But that was never the intention of our forefathers. That was never the intention put out in the Constitution. It was meant to protect everyone. And like Alex Jones says, quoting him as well, one of my favorite statements, is that democracy is nothing but two wolves and a sheep deciding who's for dinner, majority rules.
Right, exactly. That's what a democracy is. And this is not supposed to be a democracy. And what they're designing is for people to think it's a democracy. But they're actually designing more than anything a fascist dictatorship.
Exactly. And one thing about the police, what they do now, and this is something that we had talked about, police are no longer hired from their own community. They are hired from outside of their community so that they have a disconnect, so that they don't have a personal investment in those that they are policing. They are no longer, peace officers. They are seriously policing the American people.
Right, exactly. They're policing the American people, and more they're getting brainwashed that that's what they're supposed to do, and it's not what they're supposed to do. That's not their...
But that still says one thing. They are still human. So instead of us automatically going into defense mode or automatically becoming upset, like, how dare you come to me? How dare you, pull me over? Why not realize that they are as much people as you are? Talk to them. Speak to them. Don't come at them.
That's what the love police is about.
Exactly.
The love police. I got a video of the love police. I got a beautiful video of the love police. You should see what they do. They hug him. And Charlie Good says that whenever I hug him, I never fail to get to him.
At least one of them, yeah?
There's a picture. There's a video of a cop backing up while he's trying to hug him.
Mm-hmm.
Then there's videos of them actually letting him hug him. The one guy, he says, you need a hug. And the guy, he doesn't run backwards. Doesn't run forwards. He runs backwards facing him to get away from being hugged. And the guy's going after him with his arms out. You need a hug, police officer. You need a hug. Did you see that video? It's on my website.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, I thought that was hilarious. Yeah.
I
got really inspired by that. I thought it was neat.
He can give, and see what's interesting is since his major accident that injured his back, which kind of gave him a new perspective on the world around him, he actually noticed that the idea of going against the opposing force with the same effort, with yelling at them, only produces the same result. He came out of this, I guess, near-death experience or life-changing event to see that that is not how you do this. What you need to do is come across and realize that they are people too. And if you want a peaceful life, then you do not go at another person with anything else but peace.
Well, peace and information, not just peace. Peace and information. I think DVDs and pieces of paper with the truth written on them. Just every kind. If you're afraid of the police, I'm going to say this to the audience. If you're afraid of the cops, okay, fine. I'm not going to condemn you for it, okay? Because you might be in an area where you will get arrested. So I'm not going to condemn you, okay? So what I'm going to say is be sneaky. I want you to put DVDs on the windshields of police cars when they're parked or away from the window from where the police are. In other words, not at the police station, but like where they go for donuts. Mm-hmm. If they park on the side and they can only see through the front window, then be real sneaky and put them on the windshield of the police cars. And then just go. And
they do it to us all the time. How many times have you come to your car when it's parked outside of a change collection and you have a nice ticket? They do it to you all the time. Well, hey, Bruce, we're actually joined now by another host here at Freedomizer Radio. Alexandria Merrill has come in. So, Alex, want to say hi to Bruce?
Hi, Bruce. How are you doing? Just call me Alex.
Okay, Alex.
How are you doing today?
Pretty good.
I'm good. I've caught the last bit of the show, and it's very interesting, so I'm eager to get involved.
Okay.
Well, you want to, let's take a quick break because we are at our half hour, and let's come back. And then I know Michael Hall in the chat room, because he can't come to a phone at the moment, he had mentioned the idea of the S510, which the Food Safety Bill did pass under an appropriations bill in the Senate or in the Congress for the appropriations were for highways and railroads. So, of course, the food safety was added in, and those voting on that bill could not say no. They could not say no to funding more roads and fixing our collapsing infrastructure. So the food safety bill was still passed. So when we come back from our break, we'll go ahead and cover that real fast.
Please learn more about Freedomizer Radio by going to freedomizerradio.com and also Facebook us right at freedomizerradio.com. Catch you there.
Hi folks, CT here. I want to talk to you about a great preparedness resource, tomorrowsharvest.com. Whether it's an economic collapse or nature's fury, there's no feeling more secure than knowing that your loved ones will be well fed. If it's time to bug out or just camping with the family, Tomorrow's Harvest offers high-quality, cost-effective, and long-term smart food storage. Get your free sample. The choices are great. From blueberry pancakes to the cowboy chili, no one else has the meal variety of Tomorrow's Harvest. They also provide other survival necessities. Check out the various packages and customize your meal supply. Remember, there's no reason for fear today when you prepared with Tomorrow's Harvest. Go to www.tomorrowsharvest.com and tell them you are Freedomizer.
Charlie Veach on Freedomizer Radio.
And it's good to make the connection with you, Travis, at Freedomizer. And I hear big station. You're one of the biggest kind of alternative resistance radio shows. So it's an honor to be on. You don't have to thank me. I enjoy spouting my extreme propaganda over the airwaves to all these innocent, malleable minds out there.
Radio listeners, you all know that the reason for global cooling is global warming. Well, we here at Lake Havasu Snow Removal want to remind everyone that we can plow your driveway or street 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. We are available in the Lake Havasu, Phoenix, and soon-to-be Tucson areas in the cold Arizona desert. So, if your driveway is backed up in the middle of April or in the frozen tundra season of August, please call 855-NO-AZ-SNOW today. Time of day, any time of night, Lake Havasu Snow Removal will clear your driveway in freezing cold tundra of Arizona. Thank you.
Freedomizer Radio, waking people up. They have their little puppets and underlings and cliques, and pretty much every government on this planet will do their bidding as they push us into this one-world system. That's how it works. Somebody needs to carve that thing up, and I think I might be the man for the job. Be the man for the job. Waking people up. Mr. Tinfoil. Waking people. If I got to break down the information, waking people up. Every time I get to have this conversation, it sends them a little deeper down the rabbit hole. Look a little deeper. Freedomizer Radio. Waking Freedomizer Radio. Waking people up.
All right, Freedomizers, Nickie Nix back here with you, and we are joined, of course, by Bruce, and Alex is here with us too. So, you want to talk about the S510, or Food Safety Bill, I think is what it's just now known as?
No, that's great. Actually, one of the things that I was going to bring up is that there was an article, and I'm digging through all of my articles right now, about, it was a WikiLeaks article. I can't find it in front of me, but essentially the nuts and bolts of it was that WikiLeaks had released a bunch of cables that were back and forth between I believe, the ambassador in France concerning steps that they were going to take in order to force Europe to accept genetically modified seeds. Right now, in the European Union, which is the UK and France and Germany and Italy and I think Poland is joining. Anyway, in the European Union, they have banned genetically modified food products. And this has caused a tremendous amount of problems for Monsanto in the United States because, once you saturate a market like they have with the United States, you have to go somewhere else in order to make more money. And so they've been putting a lot of pressure on these foreign countries to accept genetically modified foods. Of course, the countries themselves, many of whom are self-supporting as far as their agricultural crops go, don't want genetically modified foods brought into their food chain, and they don't want genetically modified seeds. And so they have fought against this now for, I don't know, probably the better part of 10 or 15 years. Well, these WikiLeaks cables showed that the government in the United States was putting pressure on and actually out and out threatening economic decline in the European Union in the event that they would not go ahead and accept the genetically modified food. I mean, they essentially said, if you don't do what we want you to do, we'll make sure that your economy crumbles. And using those kind of tactics, especially in a time where these countries really rushed to embrace economics in the United States to get their countries who were slowly progressive over hundreds of years, but really to sort of juice up their system so that they were able to have some of the medical and the scientific advances that the United States already had, have been fighting against this. And so to tell these people essentially, you have a choice. You can take our seeds, you can take our genetically modified foods, and you can supplant them into your own economy, or we're going to bankrupt you, is shocking and horrifying and sadly not difficult to believe. But that's, it's not just a matter of genetically modified foods in the United States. This is a problem that they're shoving down the throats of people all over the world.
Yes, and we in the United States are in a bit better position to resist it because we have independent counties and independent states.
Well, the difference is they have prevented the seeds from ever being used and the food from ever being used. Right now in the United States, 100% of soybeans that are grown in the United States are genetically modified. 80% of corn is genetically modified. Monsanto several days ago released a sort of an advertising campaign geared toward getting more people to plant using their seeds by lowering their prices and trying to say that they are having a new type of organic genetically modified food. Now, by definition, you can't have both organic and genetically modified, but they're playing with words, and you have to really, when you go and buy genetically modified seeds, or I'm sorry, when you go in and say you want to buy organic seeds, you have to look and see, is this truly organic, or is organic a term that's being used in order to sell things to you? Oftentimes, you have the seed itself that they're claiming is not genetically modified. However, it came from plants that have been, essentially processed chemicals. Yeah. Well, and also, cross-pollination is a difficult thing to prevent, within about a 3-mile radius. But what they're doing is growing, when you think organic, you think no chemicals, no preservatives, no pesticides that are, chemical pesticides. And from a technical definition perspective, these people, Monsanto and others, are using a technicality to go ahead and slap the organic label on seeds that were grown in soil that does not meet organic standards.
Well,
Right.
yes,
Well,
I'm sorry?
there are other words to describe the correct seed to use.
Sure. But most people don't
Other
know.
than
And that's,
organic, you don't have to, you don't have to buy through a major outlet in order to get the kind of seed that is not like Monsanto.
no, of course. But what I'm saying is that Monsanto is aware that there is a big pushback against genetically modified seeds. And so instead of doing the direct route on the general public. They're doing the direct route with politicians and saying, here's the money, vote the way that we want you to. But with the general public, they're trying to put a nice fuzzy face on it and say, you know what, these aren't genetically modified seeds. These are organic seeds that have been improved. And I saw that terminology used not very long ago. And if you're not somebody that's really plugged into this, and you don't know about terms like heritage seeds, which is an entirely different, this is a way that people are able to monitor where the seeds came from, and in some instances, back hundreds and hundreds of years. If
well, you know what I say is that people actually, what they need to do is actually be people again and interact with your community that you are a part of. Why don't you go talk to the farmers instead of just buying from the local stores? Why don't you go find out who did your food and then ask them about seeds? Because I promise you, they will be more than happy to sell them to you, especially if they've been doing that. The thing is that we are confused as a society. We are confused into thinking that we need the nanny government to tell us where to go, our path in life. Instead, why don't we realize that we can go back to humanity? Because a lot of us have seriously lost that ability, have lost our humanity. We have become disconnected and entertained and lost in that world for so long. And it doesn't take a large effort. Just meet your neighbors. Do something small. Talk to them. Actually interact. Talk to the people that have your food.
That's true, but you would have to know that already. I mean, it's one thing for us who are sort of aware of this to say, hey, great, this is the way forward. But if you are not aware of this and you're just starting to hear buzzwords like organic and heritage and you just want to go plant a garden, maybe you don't even know what genetically modified seeds are. You just, you look at the Burpee catalog and you want to go plant a garden. Those people are perpetuating this sort of chemical dependency, and they don't even know it. So, and for somebody, I'm a New York City girl. For somebody in New York City, the ability for me, who has a full-time job and children, to be able to drive out to the country and find farmers or figure out where my food comes from is not practical. So, but what people can do is start to educate themselves, and they educate themselves by understanding, is this, are these plants that I'm planting on my windowsill in a place like New York, that I'm planting on my windowsill, are they helping? They're not only attractive, but are they helping or are they hindering? And that's really the level that people have to start on. If you go to most people, and not just people in the city, if you go to most people and say, hey, look, you need to drive out and stop the farmers and talk to them and find out where stuff comes from, no one is going to follow that. There's just not the time. It's just not a practical solution.
Yeah,
it's a great ideal solution, but it's not, it's great from an ideal perspective, but it's not a practical perspective.
Well, I disagree. I
Right,
live
but Alex, you're referring to the country or state as a whole. I'm thinking in terms of small communities where you can educate the farmers. And you can say, well, we want to buy from you directly. We don't want to go through the supermarket. We want to come to your farm. We want to buy your food. And this is what we want. We want heritage seeds, and this is what they are. If you don't understand what a heritage seed is, then we're not going to buy from you. And then those farmers have to understand we're headed into an economy where you're not going to be dealing with money anymore, where you're going to be dealing with some local currency, and all this stuff is going to be illegal by federal standards.
Right.
Which, by the way, in New York City, which is where I was born, I have no hope for you. I'm sorry. But I hate to say that, except for maybe a windowsill if you can hide it from the Gestapo. No, I mean, I wish you the best. Don't get me wrong. And I'm not going to say it's hopeless, really. That's just, I'm kidding. More or less.
I'm going to change the subject in just a second. I just want to make one last comment, and I like what you just said. That's the thing about living in this world, or at least here in the U.S., is that if they don't have what you want, we have the right to say no and walk away and go find someone who does. That shows the power that we have. And that is something, and no matter, I live here in DFW, which is huge, okay? We have farmers markets where you can actually go and speak to the people who brought in the food. They have different areas for food brought outside of the state and then for local farmers as well. And there are possibilities, and it is not out of range of capabilities to go even in living in large cities. The problem is that we are in a world of instant gratification and lazy people. And I think that's...
Right, we are in a world of lazy people. There's no doubt about it. They may not get off their butts until the last minute, and that's really a shame. But, in a local area, like I have 8,000 people in this county. It's a huge county. The houses are separated by miles. I mean, you go from one house to the other, you got to travel a mile, literally. And I can't even hardly see the nearest house from here. Now, in a community like this, we can get the people together. We're starting to do it now, to say to the state, the city county, the county commissioners, and the sheriff, look, we don't want to starve here. We're just are not interested in starving, and so we don't care about federal laws. And you know as well as I do, you just say to the sheriff, you know as well as I do, that you don't have to obey anything that comes from the state or the federal government, and you don't have to make us obey it. And just go from there.
There's a fallacy in the idea that major cities don't have farmers markets. New York City has huge farmers markets that are extremely popular, and the people, many are organic farms outside of New York. We also have places like Whole Foods, which is an entirely organic grocery store. So people are aware. I was just suggesting, and not suggesting that it's a bad plan, I'm just suggesting that for your average person, the ability to go out and to meet the farmers is not a realistic option. If you live in a small community, then that may be true. But millions and millions of people live in urban areas where that's not an option. It doesn't mean they don't care. It doesn't mean they don't buy organic seeds or buy organic food or go to the farmers markets, because we do. Just that, that some of the options as far as educating people, have to be modified depending on the type of community that you live in.
By the way, Alex, are you familiar with Gary Null? He lives in New York City.
Am I familiar with who? I'm sorry?
Gary Null, N-U-L-L.
No.
All right, check out GaryNull.com. I'll tell you why. He is extremely active in New York City on health issues, organic produce, everything, including getting, he takes older people in their 80s and 90s that are in nursing homes and sick and ready to die. He takes them out and makes them young again, and they're running like miles. None of their family can understand how this happened, but he does that. The guy's a miracle worker.
Cool.
Check him out, GaryNull.com, and you got to get connected with Gary Null and all his activities in New York City. He is fantastic.
In fact, he has a 109-year-old who runs 4 miles every morning and eats nothing but raw food and has him apparently since he's 4 years old. But yes, like I said, we're going to take a quick, I'm going to play a quick clip, and we're going to change the topic real fast and move on. So I do apologize, but we need to go for just for a minute, because I'll do clips. When it comes to food, I'll stay here forever. So let's move on for a minute, play this quick clip. It is a clip by Manly P. Hall. Bruce, you probably actually know who that is, so hang in there, Freedomizers.
We've been trying to find out what love is, but we will never find it by trying to get a definition out of a book or something of that kind. The only way that honest, simple, genuine love can be transmitted is by experience, by the absolute fact of itself. Are we able to be kind to each other? Are we able to forgive our enemies? Are we able to do good to those who despitefully use us? Are we willing to continue quietly in a meek way of life? Are we interested in the simple humilities of virtue? Do we want a happiness that arises from making others happy, rather than sacrificing them to our happiness? Do we want a happy home? Are we willing to support it by character, by integrity? Love is an experience of consciousness, an experience in the soul of man. It is something that is the great releasing power against the tyranny of personal attitudes. It is placing something bigger than yourself in the foreground of your life. It is dedicating to your acts to projects, to purposes, to convictions that are of common good to all mankind. Love is a mature emotion. It is not the mysterious bubbling of adolescence. It is a deep, lasting, enduring dedication. Love is not merely staying with it till it hurts and then walking out on it. Love is not merely getting into various emotional situations for profit, for gain, for social standing. There can be no selfishness and no self-centeredness in true affection. Also, love cannot be bought, bartered, or sold. It remains as it has always been, basically, the purest of all human emotions. And if it becomes adulterated or becomes defiled, it is one of the most terrible adversities with which we must struggle in our course of existence. Between our love principle in our souls and its expression in life is a strange personality equation, full of self-centeredness, full of false ambitions, full of prejudices and tyrannies and intemperances and intolerances. This personality, which we like to cater to forever, is not only a personality that brings tragedy to ourselves, but the compound of this personality has resulted in over 8,000 wars in the course of history. That is rather too many. And many of these wars have been fought to defend peace. We have fought also about religion and about the very brotherhood which we need so desperately. And yet, after it's all said and done, and we look around ourselves and we say, well, what can we do about it? It's truly a terrible situation. And if it continues as it is, it'll be a fatal situation. So we're going to have to recognize that all the compromising that we do in order to accomplish our own personal desires, all these things, all this compromise leads to nothing. It never has succeeded, never can. For all this great struggle of competitive materialism ends at the grave. And we take with us out of this life only what we brought in, ourselves. So with this, it shouldn't be so difficult for the individual to say to himself, let's make this daily life a little happier for everyone. Let's try to do it right for a change.
All right, Freedomizers, we're back. And Bruce, what do you think about that clip?
What did I think of the clip?
Yes.
Well, I thought that what he was saying was absolutely true. We need to stop thinking about our individual selves so much in all of our decisions, like what's going to happen to me or my family. We have to start thinking about not just me and my family, but the world. And even our country. We can't be saying, oh, if everything's okay in America, then everything's fine, because that doesn't work either. We're all connected, and we have to see this as a world community. I don't mean it in the New World Order sense, become one world, because that's a whole other story.
That requires someone controlling you.
Yeah, we can be separate countries and keep our separate languages and have our separate cultures, but we don't need to say, and we don't need to unite in the sense that we're all one country and we're all under one government. We just have to unite in terms of exchanging love and exchanging goods and caring for one another, in that sense.
Very, very much so. And Alex, what do you think?
I think well said. What he said.
There you go. And there's one thing. We can be a global community, and we can have global communication, and we can have global interaction without having an opposing or an opposition of a leader telling us how to do it, and who to do it with. That's the thing.
Right.
We are under this misconception that we have to have a governing force, that we have to have a mother and dad saying yes, no, and that's not the case. People tend to take care of each other when left to their own devices.
Right. And by the way, the people in the world are getting together using metaphysical principles that have been proven to work. And that's on the World Peace Alliance website. The scientific backup of a lot of this is in a book called the Divine Matrix, which is also on the website. And but the explanation of what has come from this research that was done by Dr. Bruce Lipton and also Greg Braden, whose videos are up there on the site, is that what they've come up with is a figure from doing some, I did read the research. I didn't cite it directly on the site. I just cited the book. That's only temporary. I think I might get into actually getting the exact wording from the research that was done. But what the research shows is that the square root of 1% of the population, without any outside activity, in other words, any overt activity, without getting politically involved, without giving out DVDs, I'm not saying we shouldn't do those things. I'm just saying that without that, with nothing but the spiritual intent towards world peace, has a tendency to bring peace to given populations. I'm getting world peace mixed up with given populations. Let's say you're in a country and all the people in that country, or it's a small country, the actual square root of 1% of that population intends upon world peace in a spiritual way, just spiritual, without any physical activity. It has been shown that that percentage is enough to affect a consciousness shift to where peace actually comes out in the physical world. Crime is reduced, warlike activities are reduced, violent crime is reduced. And it's been proven so many times through these methods of checking it out. And that's what I'm really into more than anything else right now. That is the focus of my attention. Now, there is one site on the links page. It's called Attract World Peace. And if you click at it, here's their device. Now, I'm going to incorporate that device on my website pretty soon. Their device, and I think this is a fantastic idea, is everybody who comes to that site who's interested puts in their name and their email address and pledges to contact 10 other people through their email. Send it, same thing to 10 more people. Each person gets 10 more people. This is a fantastic idea because everybody can send out to 10 other people. And what it is you have to get into that state of mind where you really believe and can really focus on world peace. Before you can do it, you got to be peaceful within. If you're screaming at your husband, if you're screaming at your kids, and you're mad at everybody all day long, and you can't think about anything else except how bad the New World Order is and how they're going to get us, and that's 90% of you thinking you're not in peace. I don't care how much good you do, and you are doing some good trying, waking people up, but if that's all you can think about is the bad part, you're not at peace. You got to be at peace to create peace. We are the change. We are that change, and the peace within us will bring the change. That's what Gandhi taught, and it's true. That's the end of my soapbox statement. Okay. Who's next?
I don't have a soapbox statement.
You what about the soapbox statement?
I said I don't have a soapbox statement. I feel I feel underdressed for this event.
Oh, Alex, you're from New York City. How could you ever be unprepared?
Oh, I have an opinion on everything. I just don't have a soapbox for it.
Yeah, I'm from New York City. I lived there until I was about 30.
Yeah? How could you possibly leave the greatest place in the world?
Too busy. I need to calm down.
Well, I have the benefit. I spend about half the year at home and half the year either on the road, or the last 7 years I've spent part of the year in Europe, working in Europe. So I get the little break that I need. But it's hard to live anywhere else once you've been a New Yorker.
You know what you need to do? Watch My Dinner with Andre, because he says that everybody in New York City is a prisoner. Check it out. Have you ever seen My Dinner with Andre?
No, I haven't seen it, but I love New York.
Check it out. It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Having lived all over the world and knowing what all is out there, and I really, I like the idea in theory of country life, but really just in theory.
Well, I'll tell you, for most of what's left of my life, I've been away from the city. But up until age 30, I was pretty much in the city of New York.
I guess it might depend on where you are as well.
I'm 70 now. So I can remember New York City as a long ago memory.
Well, I think that's when I very first came to New York, because I wasn't born in New York, but when I first came to New York, New York City as a whole was a dramatically different place than it is now. It was extremely violent. Times Square was essentially the place that people went to go buy drugs or pick up prostitutes. And now, we call it Disneyland because of all the, the family theme things there. But, it's definitely a place that's changed over, over the course of the last, I guess, 20 years, 25 years since I first.
Yeah, you got to check out Gary. No, I'm telling you, I know this guy, and he is perfect for you to know him. Believe me, he's got farms. He's got farms in upstate New York. He gives speeches. He gives all kinds of activities going on. He takes old people and he makes them young. He takes people out of nursing homes, and he takes 20. They're in their 80s, and he takes 20 to 30 years off their actual physical age. I've seen him do it. I've seen the people. I've talked to them, and they say, I was in a nursing home. I could hardly walk, and I'm running a mile every day, or almost every day. This is amazing. This guy does this.
Yeah, no, I'll definitely check it out.
Yeah.
Hey, freelancers, we're at the top of the hour. I'm going to play a quick clip. This is actually Red Skelton and him trying to allow people to actually have a personal attachment to the Pledge of Allegiance. It's a very good clip, and that can bring us into another subject when we return in just a minute. Although I always forget this clip starts a little late, so Freedomizers, check us out on...
I remember a teacher that I had. Now, I went through the 7th grade. I went to the 7th grade. I left home when I was 10 years old because I was hungry. I'd work in the summer, I'd go to school in the winter. But I had this one teacher. He was the principal of the Harrison School in Vincennes, Indiana. To me, this was the greatest teacher, a real sage of my time, anyhow. He had such wisdom. And we were all reciting the Pledge of Allegiance one day. And he walked over, this little teacher, Mr. Lasswell was his name. Mr. Lasswell. And he says, I've been listening to you boys and girls recite the Pledge of Allegiance all semester. And it seems as though it's becoming monotonous to you. If I may I recite it and try to explain to you the meaning of each word. I, me, an individual, a committee of one, pledge, dedicate all of my worldly goods to give without self-pity, allegiance, my love and my devotion to the flag, our standard, oh glory, a symbol of freedom. Wherever she waves, there's respect, because your loyalty has given her a dignity that shouts freedom is everybody's job. United. That means that we have all come together. States, individual communities that have united into 48 great states. 48 individual communities with pride and dignity and purpose, all divided with imaginary boundaries, yet united to a common purpose, and that's love for country. And to the republic, a state in which sovereign power is invested in representatives chosen by the people to govern. And government is the people. And it's from the people to the leaders, not from the leaders to the people, for which it stands. One nation, meaning so blessed by God, indivisible, incapable of being divided, with liberty, which is freedom, the right of power to live one's own life, without threats, fear or some sort of retaliation. And justice, the principle or qualities of dealing fairly with others. For all, which means, boys and girls, it's as much your country as it is mine. And now, boys and girls, let me hear you recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Since I was a small boy, 2 states have been added to our country, and 2 words have been added to the Pledge of Allegiance, under God. Wouldn't it be a pity if someone said that is a prayer and that would be eliminated from schools too?
Okay, Freemasers, I don't want to play the music and clapping, but we're back, and I've got Bruce here with us, and I'm also going to bring in another guest as well, Doc Mike from Chicago and American Space Radio, and also wakeupwell.org. So Doc Mike and Bruce, y'all want to say hi real fast?
I'm right here.
Fine.
Thank you for letting me join you again. And
Not a problem.
have you got a co-host there with you?
He's a guest here with me. He's what I was actually talking to you on the phone about yesterday as well. But Doc Mike, he does all natural healing here, Bruce, and him and I have been working together trying to get like cancer cures and things of that nature out to the public.
Well, the cancer
that's
cure.
good. I'm very much interested in natural cures myself, and I feel that we need to learn as much about that as possible. You know, as the economic problems are coming about, we need to be more independent.
Right.
And I personally deal with all my. I don't even deal with doctors at all. I deal with books. One of my favorite authors is Sherry Rogers. She's a doctor. She wrote the book, Is Your Cardiologist Killing You? And she tells ways to clear out your arteries, that you don't need a bypass operation.
Right.
Including, have you ever heard of detoxamine? It's EDTA that comes through the colon.
Well, I do use some colon therapies with urine, and we're now investigating a centuries-old other technique. It's coming out of New York at the Montefiore Research Center and now to the University of Chicago. I've talked to a couple doctors here. We're using fecal therapy. I believe in a homeopathic mix. They thin it out with water, do the succussions and the dilution, and then put healthy bowel material into people that are very sick with this new C. diff syndrome of extreme diarrhea. It's worse than MRSA, and they're curing it very, very quickly. They're starting a research project here in Chicago. And
Are you familiar with the?
Go ahead.
Are you familiar with the Power Hour? Because they sell a lot of those things.
Well, I've had a little problem with Joyce Riley. I met her in Canada near the North Pole with my cure for fibromyalgia, and come to find out a couple years later that one of her best friends was suffering with fibromyalgia, and I cured her friend, and Joyce never wanted me to expand on my fibromyalgia issues. She thought that I was some kind of fraud. Well, I've cured thousands of cases of fibromyalgia, and the Power Hour, I believe, that's her and Dave Van Kleist, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, Dave Van Kleist and her split up. They're not married anymore.
Oh, well, he probably got smart and dumped her, because I have no respect for her.
Well, she's been on her own for about, I guess, a couple of years now.
She's pretty money hungry. I know she was giving away that green soap, Miracle soap, whatever it was called, Miracle something or other.
and to GIs, and then, soaking them for a case of the stuff afterwards. But I don't deal with Joyce at all. If she's got some product, it may be good. There's some very good products out there. I just heard of a new one today that is 10 times more powerful than any anti-inflammatory. I guess it was on Mercola and Dr. Oz's show. But
yeah, she's got some good stuff and some bad stuff. I don't rely on her at all.
Oh, good.
But,
Okay.
But she has a good guests on.
Yeah, oh,
and,
yeah. Right.
Yeah, she has some excellent. And one of them is Sherry Rogers. She's a medical doctor.
Right.
Who's very good when it comes to the arteries, clearing out the arteries, and because people get strokes, they get heart attacks, and she is an excellent doctor, Sherry Rogers. If you ever want to check on some good literature, check on Sherry Rogers in regard to cardiology. Check on Sherry Rogers because she's got some excellent therapies. She doesn't sell them herself, but she recommends certain therapies.
All right. And, what was your first name again? I didn't get that from
it's
Nickie.
Bruce, B-R-U-C-E, Bruce Kettler.
Oh, okay, Bruce. What I do is, and I've had tremendous success with it, this goes back thousands of years, is garlic and onions. When somebody's on Coumadin or they suspect them of some type of arterial problem in the heart, we put them on garlic and onions, and the blood stabilizes. The clotting in the body is virtually non-existent, and they go have a nice life. Their blood pressure returns to 120 over 80. And
is that raw, or is that cooked?
Yes, raw garlic is best. I've had some success with gel caps and the non-smelling garlic, because a lot of people, think that they start stinking if they take these natural blood thinners. So we put them on. If whatever way they want to get it into their body is fine with me. And some of them just don't like it. So, well, then pardon?
Well, you're talking about blood thinning, and that is probably an asset. Thinning the blood, obviously.
It's an asset. Yeah, of course.
It's a definite asset to any cardiology problems. One of the things that people do for an emergency is they put cayenne pepper in liquid form under the tongue with an eyedropper.
Right.
As an emergency measure, my understanding is that works better than the nitroglycerin that doctors prescribe for people when they're in emergency, they're having a heart attack.
Yes.
That works better under the tongue, and if you can mix it with whiskey and warm it up and drink it, it really helps. But that's only a temporary thing. You want long-term effects so you don't have those problems.
Well,
but I've learned a lot about the heart and about the circulatory system, not through her. I don't listen to her and say, yeah, you're right. It's Dr. Joyce. Far from a doctor. But I know a lot of her guests, and I can tell which ones are good and which ones aren't. And Sherry Rogers is excellent in that particular area of medicine.
Okay. Well, what I've been working with for the last going on 14 years now in my practice here, and I've been in court for over 10 years with the Licensing Bureau here in Illinois. It's a big scam over here. They're trying to get Doc Mike off the planet. But what I am is a life coach, and I was very
he's not a
sick.
medical doctor.
Yeah, I'm not. The Doc. My name Doc has been used since I was 14. It was a nickname. It still remains a nickname, and I have to mention that on all of my correspondence. It's on my website, so that people don't get confused about.
And you don't get sued again.
Right. Get confused about me chopping up doctors, getting rid of prescription drugs and surgeries and radiations and things like that. If anybody could even construe that I'm a doctor, they probably need a lobotomy. Because I want to get rid of 800,000 doctors out there. They have no use as far as I'm concerned. I treat people that are very, very sick because of doctors. Coming out of the U.S. Navy in 1965, I was drugged out of my mind in the psychiatric unit there for absolutely nothing. It was a few year or so before I went in the Navy, I was one of the best athletes in Illinois. When I came out of the Navy, I was a zombie for about a year and a half. And I beat it, came back, had some episodes, but was drugged for 36 years with 1,200 milligrams a day of lithium. 300 milligrams for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and bedtime for 36 years. You do the math on that. That's 45,000 pills. Over 1,200,000 milligrams of lithium went through my liver and kidneys, and I'm still moving my jaw. And I'll tell you what, I've got 2 books. The first one is How to Practice Medicine Without a License, Be Your Own Doctor. And the other one is How to Get Rid of Your Doctor Before He Gets Rid of You.
Sounds like really interesting titles, let me tell you.
Well, I'm very militant.
Now, there's some of those medical doctors, legitimate, actual practicing licensed doctors, have been able to retain their license. Not that many of them. And one of them is Sherry Rogers. Now, there's a whole bunch of other ones that have lost their license because they want to practice real medicine.
That's right. Have you ever heard of that?
But Sherry, now there's 2 doctors who have made it through and have beat the system.
I know the other one, too, Lorraine Day.
Lorraine Day is another one. Well, there's more than 2, but I wanted to mention 2 of them.
There are very few.
There's one very brilliant guy, and he knows all about the vaccines, and he exposes the vaccines.
Yeah, give me a name.
Okay, I'm trying to remember it.
Oh, okay.
What the heck?
He's
a brain surgeon. He's a brain surgeon. He's got a really complicated name. You know what I got to do?
You're talking about Dr. Brzezinski?
No.
Because he's curing cancer.
That poor guy's got the name. It's almost like Hitler.
Oh. Well.
No, I'm not saying he's like Hitler. I think he's got a name. Yeah. If it was Hitler.
Something?
I don't know if you know who Brzezinski is, but do you know, Nickie, do you know who Brzezinski is?
I do, actually.
Sure. Brzezinski is curing cancer with urine therapy. He cured Suzanne Summers. Then she wrote her book, Knockout, 5 Doctors That Are Curing Cancer. She never spent a day in jail, but Doc Mike's been to jail. I've been in court for 10 years for practicing medicine without a license because I inform people of how to live a proper life and how to get rid of diseases.
How to cure instead of treat. How to cure instead of prescribe pharmaceuticals.
Right. Yeah, we don't want management anymore, and we've got a mayoral candidate here in Chicago that wants to set up $1 billion, that's what a billion-dollar park here for finding cures for diseases. His name is Gary Chico, and I'm going to be getting in touch with his campaign manager. He's all over the papers and television here in Chicago. He wants to set up an industrial park here for billions of dollars from the government that will start working with cures. He's tired of seeing people die like on my shows that I do. I've got one coming up at 5 o'clock Central Time at AmericanVoiceRadio.com. Okay, the Wake Up Well. He's tired of seeing people die at the rate of 2,200 a day, Bruce. That's what
you know what that is, though? It's not an accident. That's what they call, the technical name for that is eugenics. The doctors are designed to kill you. By the way, the guy's name is Dr. Russell Blaylock, B-L-A-Y-L-O-C-K.
He's on my board of directors. Yeah, I know him very well. You're talking about Betty Martini's good friend. They're working with aspartame.
Right. He gets on aspartame. Yeah. He's on the Save the County page of my website.
Wonderful.
Save the County, and I've got a video of him, and he talks about how they use the stuff that's in the food and in the air to cause the people's minds to go numb so they'll believe propaganda that's on the TV. Their minds are getting up, they're getting dumber and dumber and dumber.
I just want to make a quick comment for anybody listening and in the chat room as well. This is one thing I like to push forward. We hear aspartame all the time, and nobody truly knows what it is. So let me put it this way. Once it's formaldehyde. It basically condenses into formaldehyde. So that's what aspartame is, and that's what's in all our diet drinks, and that's what you see pregnant women drinking because they think it's better. And all that does is, I mean, come on.
Yeah, it causes cerebral palsy and multiple sclerosis. It's a tragic, tragic food additive that Mr. Rumsfeld, before he blew up the towers in New York, profited in millions, multi-millionaire from aspartame.
Right.
Was generated.
By the way, I was telling you about bad names. Brzezinski is on the order of Rumsfeld. As far as, it's almost like Hitler. Hitler, you can put them all together. Hitler, Brzezinski, and Rumsfeld. Now, I know you don't know who Brzezinski is except for your friend, but just tell him to change his name, please. Because, unfortunately, when the history comes out, the true history comes out, and Rumsfeld's name, or not Rumsfeld, but Brzezinski's name comes up, he's not going to want to have the same name. You know, that's a funny thing. There's a guy who gets on the air who's got the name Napolitano, and he's a judge, and he's a good constitutionalist. And he calls Homeland Security's Napolitano. He says cousin Napolitano, but it's a joke. And I think he's thinking about changing his name at this point.
Okay. Well, Brzezinski spent over $1 million defending himself in court against the cancer claims that he has. And I run Medical Patriots. See, these are doctors that cure diseases and have their medical licenses yanked. Now, I'm unlicensed, uncertified, unregistered, because if I got the license to do what I'm doing, it would last about 10 minutes, if I'm lucky.
Well,
the
thing about these other people is they're probably, like, for instance, the doctor I mentioned, Dr. Blaylock, these people have kind of circumvented the system in that they're very astute and they're very strong-willed in getting their way and being able to keep on going in the right way without losing their license. And a lot of that is spiritual. There's a power you get spiritually when you grow that you can thwart a lot of this. Now, I'm not saying I'm telling you
I believe in that perfectly, Bruce, because I worked with an Indian tribe, an Ojibwa tribe up near the Mackinac Bridge, and I cured a number of people up there of their ailments, and they inducted me into the tribe and then powerized me with their symbolism and so on, and gave me an Indian name, the tree man, that's Matignana, and turned me loose on the medical industry. And I've been doing that for, I guess it was, I'm saying 7-8 years that I've been in this tribe. And
well, you have your path to do it outside the system, which is fine. And as long as you're succeeding outside the system, fine.
That's the only place I can be, Bruce. I
that's
cannot
you,
get into
but
the
I'm
system.
saying Russell Blaylock is doing it inside the system.
Oh, yeah.
That doesn't make one better than the other. It just means we all have our own path. That's all.
I mean, everything's possible. There is no impossibility. You can do it anyway. And to have the idea that you have to go into the system to have an effect is not necessarily true. But there is that same thing that some people are good like that. The thing is we need to identify that skill within ourselves. We need to look into ourselves and see what works for us, what works for our life.
Right, and the method that we use to help other people is different for all of us because we have different paths. Right. One person, like a cop, can work inside the system if he doesn't like the system, and he can work better inside the system. Whereas somebody like me, I go around and give out literature to cops. Right. You know, I give literature to military people. I give DVDs to cops and military. Whereas another guy on the inside, he's got a different path. I could probably have become a cop, you know, and by this time been working from within the system to try to change it. But I'm on the outside. and you're on the outside, and Blaylock is on the inside, and doesn't matter. It's like we all have a path.
Right.
We just follow that path, what is in harmony with you and your spirit. That's all. Yeah, I know where you're at, and I know that it's perfect for you, and there's nothing wrong with it. So I'm happy for what you're doing, and I'm very happy that you're doing what you're doing.
Well, it's working real well. I've got, 35 million listeners every afternoon on Wednesdays and Fridays at American Voice Radio for about 7 years now. We're bucking up against Michael Savage. Could you give me a little thumbnail of your bio, Bruce, as to what your background is and what you're doing?
Okay, well, as far as medical stuff, most of what I do medically is for myself personally. That's my education is from me. But I will get in and tell people what I'm doing for myself. So, but as far as for other people, my bio is I am an activist for freedom, which includes medical freedom, of course.
Right.
Freedom and prosperity, which means, and prosperity today is getting to look more and more like your own sustainable community where you have everybody, taking care of each other with growing food, whatever way you have of getting food.
Right.
So that's my activism. In other words, working for myself on out into the community and to the local government, like the sheriff, county commissioners, and so forth. Now that is my primary activity, but that's what I do on the outside. But then I have a metaphysical work, which is worldwide in scope, which has to do with meditating for world peace or world freedom and world prosperity.
Is that similar to Buddhism or no?
It has some of the Buddhist ideas in it, because the Buddhists believe we're all one and we're all connected.
Right.
But that doesn't mean it's Buddhist, and I could never put that label on it at all. It's more science, today's science, than anything else. The scientists have discovered in the last 10 or 20 years or so the interconnectedness of all matter and all mind. And what they're doing now, what these people are doing in a scientific manner, well, first of all, they're discovering that a lot of the old ideas from thousands of years ago are being incorporated into science today, and they're experimenting scientifically to see if it's all true.
Now, you're not talking about Scientology.
No, nothing.
No.
Well, I know very little Scientology, and I'm not connected with that organization at all.
Okay.
Scientology, by the way, and all of these cults have an element of truth within them. So if somebody takes the element of truth that's within Scientology and connects it with mine and say that I'm a Scientologist, they're not looking at it really carefully. There's an element of truth everywhere. They probably have in their literature that we're all one, because almost everybody's got that somewhere. They say that.
Right.
Every organization, Christians, everybody says that. But how do you mean it in what sense? I mean it in a scientific way, where, and if you take Greg Bryden and you look at his research that he's done through universities, even through the U.S. Army,
right,
that they've discovered scientifically that we're all connected. So you take a bunch of people meditating on world peace and prosperity, and you experiment to see if the world around them has changed.
Yeah.
And you see that it has, and you see it every time, over and over and over again.
Wonderful.
Then you know that this works. And that's what I'm into. And that's what is explained through videos and written material on my website, World Peace Alliance, with dashes or hyphens in between each word, worldpeacealliance.com.
Well, you might find my website interesting, too, because it's kind of along the same lines of individually taking the nutrition, oxygen, and the immune system. I call it ION research, the immune system, oxygen, and nutrition. It's the smallest particle on the planet, an ion, and I call it ION research. And with these three things of respecting the immune system, how oxygen works in the body, and how nutrition reinforces it, you got a life. You got a real life.
IonResearch.com.
I know I just call it Ion Research. My website is described in there in different phases. We're putting my websites back together because when they threw me in jail, I had to take down all my websites, docmike.com and wakeupwell.org. But wakeupwell.org is back up now, and we're adding to the website on a regular basis. We got some of the stuff from the archives of docmike.com, but a lot of it was lost, unfortunately.
Well, you shouldn't have that stuff backed up. You shouldn't have that just on the website. It should be, you know what you do? Buy one of those thumb drives.
Computers, Gary, Bruce. He doesn't know computers at all. You actually have to call him on the phone and speak with him. So he's not computer savvy.
I'll call you up and I'll tell you to get a thumb drive and make a copy on a thumb drive of your website. The thumb drive fits in your pocket. It actually fit on a keychain. And you put one copy in your pocket on a keychain, you give one to somebody else for safekeeping. If they ever bring your website down again, you'll be able to bring it back up. I'll explain all that to you in detail on the telephone later.
That'd be fine.
If you want to call me.
Appreciate that. I wish I could have done that because...
information and everything else, we got to take a break as well, so.
Okay, go ahead. We'll be waiting for you on the other side.
Okay, well, that's cool. We'll do that then. And I'll make sure y'all two get in touch as well, but his number he will give out as soon as we get back. What I'm going to do right now is play a quick song, come back with commercials, and Freedomizers, we'll be right back with you.
The greatest form of control is where you think you're free when you're being fundamentally manipulated and dictated. One form of dictatorship is being in a prison cell and you can see the bars and touch it. The other one is sitting in a prison cell but you can't see the bar, you think you're free.
What the human race is suffering from is mass hypnosis. We are being hypnotized by people like this. Newsreaders, politicians, teachers, lecturers.
We are in a country and in a world that is being run by unbelievably sick people. The chasm between what we're told is going on and what is really going on is absolutely enormous.
It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's paying to what happens to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us all every slave. And everybody's just walking around, heading the time we wanna wake up to a shot in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Round drums to the end of day. Everybody is slave, only some are aware that the government releasing poison in the air. That's the reason I collect so many guns in my lab. I ain't never cross-slipping, never underprepared. Yeah, they shade sign on you, they destroy the crowd. George Bush the grandson of Alice the Crown. They want you to believe the lie of the enemy's Saudi. The enemy ain't Saudi, the enemy around me. It's fluoride in the water, but nobody know that. It's also a prominent ingredient in Prozac. How could any government bestow that? Apply people who believe in political throwback. That's not all that I'm here to present you. I know about the Black Pope and Solomon's Temple. Yeah, about the Vatican assassins and how they will get you. And how they clone Barack Hussein Obama in a test tube. It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's paying to what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us all every slave. And everybody's just walking around, heading the time we wanna wake up to a shot in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Round drums in the end. Whoever built the pyramids had knowledge of electrical power, and you know that that's the information that they suppress and devour. Where you sent the motherfuckers to crash in the tower, where you sent them made it turn into action an hour. The same ones that invaded your own, the ones that never told you about the skeletons on the moon. Yeah, the ones that poison all the food you consume, the ones that never told you about the Mount Vesuvius tomb. The bird flu is a lie, the swan flu is a lie. Why would that even come as a surprise? Yeah, the polio vaccine made you die. It caused cancer and it cost a lot of people their lives. Did y'all know about Bohemian Grove? How the world leaders sacrifice their children in Rome? Lucifer is God in the public school system. I suggest you open up your ears and you listen. It's like we all know what's going down, but no one's paying to what happened to the home of the brave. These motherfuckers, they controlling us now, and no one's talking about how they made us all every slave. And everybody's just walking around, heading the time we wanna wake up to a shot in the grave. But then it's too late, we need to be ready to raise up. Round drums in the end of days. The great
Freedomizers. Hang in there, Freedomizers. I'm sorry, I really did not realize that the song had ended, so hang on a second. Let me finish this out, and I'll bring the guys back in. They have to stop talking first, so hang in there. Let me see if I can find an ad. Okay, hang in there.
Are you looking for an end-time survival group? Well, Operation 13-9 has over 500 members right now preparing for end-time stuff like martial law and end-time survival. Go and join right now. www.operations13-9.me.com.
Hello, you freedom-loving freaks. Adjust your tinfoil and join me, the conspiracy theorist, live here at Freedomizer Radio.
The New World Order Report, Monday through Friday, featuring new host ABC on Mondays and Wednesdays, and myself, Trevino1, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. The unauthorized, unlicensed news brought to you every weeknight at 8 p.m. Eastern on Freedomizer Radio.
But Jeff, I'm glad to see you survived the fall civilization. You look a little hungry. Did you put any food in that bug-out bag? No. No? Well, you know, there's gophers in that field over there. You like gopher?
I like gopher.
You know there's 25 ways to cook a gopher.
Is there?
In fact, there is, but there's no way to cook a gopher that's better than a little Travenile 1 gopher dipping barbecue sauce. Solves a real man's appetite. Got barbecue sauce in that bag of yours?
Nope.
That's all right, I do. That's right, just go on over there, get us a gopher, and we'll have some of that fantastic, yummy, tasty Travenile 1 gopher dipping barbecue sauce.
This completely fictional commercial in no way indicates that Travenile 1 does actually make a gopher dipping barbecue sauce. If Travenile 1 does ever decide to make a gopher dipping barbecue sauce, False Flag Radio fully expects the royalties from the broadcast that you tune into the commune, the conspiracy theorist, exclusively on False Flag Radio.
All right, Freedomizers, we're back, and we have both Bruce here and Doc Mike. So, Joe, who wants to go first on that? We got people in the chat room wanting to know again about when Bruce was speaking about the person working in New York that could help the people that were in retirement homes. So, you want to take it off?
Well, this is Doc Mike. As when we were at the break, we mentioned a mutual friend, and I guess Alex Jones has mentioned it also, and that is Gary Null. And I've been...
Oh, not Alex Jones. This is a different Alex.
What, pardon?
This is a different Alex.
Oh, a lady.
It's a woman named Alex who was on... No, she was on the air earlier.
All right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I just don't want to... I don't want to say anything incorrect about Alex Jones. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm sorry. I misspoke. It's a caller by the name of Alex.
Mm-hmm.
And in 2006, Gary Null, who's a PhD, authored a article in Life Extension called Death by Medicine. I quote this article many, many times during the year in my broadcasts at American Voice Radio. One of the most serious things about this article is that the statement that American conventional medicine is the leading cause of death in the United States. And then it goes on with very, very graphic charts and research that they have done. It's an exhaustive and startling, meticulous study about how many people die every year in the medical trade. Okay, approximately 2,200 Americans die every day in this licensed doctoring that we do out there of radiation, surgery, adverse drug reactions, medical errors, bed sores, infections, malnutrition, outpatient therapy, unnecessary procedures, and surgery related. Approximately 800,000 dead Americans every year. This month alone, the month of January, we will kill more Americans at the end of this month than the entire Vietnamese War killed the GIs over there. Of 59,000, there'll be over 60,000 dead Americans by the end of January. In 1 month, we'll kill more Americans than were killed in 10 years in the Vietnam War. Okay? And I go on to describe this article. If you want to go to the archives of life extension, if you go to August of 2006, you can see this exhaustive study. It's 10 or 15 pages where they go into the mechanics of how doctors kill people. And they are licensed to do this. There is no liability. Okay? It's called standard of care. So,
right, I call it eugenics. It is, now, so a lot of the doctors don't know that they're part of it. They go through a system of indoctrination where they're deprived of sleep. And during that time, they're indoctrinated into that they're doing the right thing. Some of them wake up to the fact that they're doing the wrong thing, but they realize that it's very hard to buck the system, so they just keep on doing it. Yeah. But some of them just don't even know what they're doing. They just think it's the best thing. They're doing the best thing, and the system is right.
You go ahead, Bruce. I'll be right back. You go ahead.
Yeah, the doctors are generally indoctrinated. And some of them are not. Some of them break the indoctrination. And some of them break the indoctrination early on, and then they become good practitioners. The ones who survive because of spiritual.
What? Amazing. Sorry, that was my son. He walked by.
Doc Mike is back. That was one of my members of IIR, another group that I run called the International Independent Researchers, and he's going to call me back in about 20 minutes. So go ahead with your statement about the eugenics. Let me just add something to this. I think it's genocide. Forget about the eugenics. It's genocide. They want to.
Well, it's actually either one of those words will apply. Genocide, I think, is a more open method, whereas eugenics is more soft and hidden. I think they both mean the same. The thing is that as time goes on, it becomes more like genocide. You know, kind of like what Hitler was doing. But at the beginning, when you want to keep it in stealth mode, you know, where people don't know what's happening to them, you call it eugenics because, you know, you don't want them to know that, you know, your grandpa died because, not because we killed him, but because, you know, there wasn't anything we could do for him, you know, or whatever.
Right.
So
but
that's more of a subtle thing. There is a video put out by Alex Jones.
Yeah.
It's called Endgame.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Yeah, Endgame pretty much gives you the complete picture of what they're up to. Not complete, because he himself said he had to do a sequel to it, which he never got around to.
Right. Well, you know, with genocide, it's about the numbers. Okay, if you kill 800,000 Americans a year, okay, in 10 years, that's 8 million Americans in 10 years. So if we go back to 1900, okay, I'm sorry, 1900, to 2000, that's 10 years ago, and we add the people up, it's 10 million dead Americans. That is genocide. See?
Well, yeah, but see, yeah, no, I have to agree that the definition is correct. But there are shades of meaning. You know, it's like...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you know, you put them in ovens,
and you put them in gas chambers, that's genocide. When you fake it, then that's more like eugenics. You know?
Okay.
In other words, if you can tell a story to the family of the man who died, and you can get them to believe that it was just our failure accidentally, we couldn't save him, we tried, then that's more subtle, and then that's eugenics. But as time goes on, eugenics fades into genocide, and it starts to get more open. Right now, what they're doing is they're indoctrinating the public with the idea that anybody who's over 65 is a useless eater and therefore should be dead. They're also indoctrinating the public with the idea, which is false, of course, that there are too many people on the earth, which is total garbage. You can fit all of the people, 6 billion, in the state of Texas, and they actually live comfortably.
Sure.
Better than they live in New York City, for that matter. Seriously, New York City, they got them stacked up real high.
I know.
I lived
vertical housing. Yeah. It's all vertical.
I lived there till I was 30 years old. It's crazy.
Yeah. Well, I've
Do you
been
live in the middle of the city or in the suburbs of Chicago?
What's that?
Do you live in the middle of the city or the suburbs of Chicago?
I'm in the suburbs now. I never did really live in the city. The closest I got was about 10 miles in Oak Park and River Forest. But I lived about 40 miles north of the city. And now I can see the Sears Towers from where I'm sitting right here. I'm about 25 miles west of the city now.
I see.
And a little bit south.
Right.
So, but, we're on the right track here of informing people that if they want to become part of this eugenics or genocide, whichever you want to go soft or you want to go hard, it doesn't make any difference.
Soft kill, hard kill.
Say that again, Nikki?
Well, one is faster. One is faster. One is faster. One is slower.
Yeah.
But they're accelerating it right now. My understanding is they have a whole lot of fluoride in all the processed, pretty much nearly all the processed foods.
And in those bottled waters, which people tend to not conceive of that fact. It's still in your bottled water, so even just going to bottled water doesn't fix the issue.
Yeah, and that's why homeopathics are so important, because if you're drinking your own urine or using an autopathy substance like sweat, tears, bowel, mucus, semen, sperm, menstrual blood, blister fluid, pus, tongue scraping, saliva, any one of these substances, you can bulletproof yourself against these substances that they're throwing, like the fluoride and chlorine in the water. I just had a blood test today, and it's perfect. And I do have some city water here from time to time. Not very much of it, but I do, and I have bottled water, which probably has some fluoride in it. But there is no effect on the basic, what they call complete blood count, which I had today. It was perfect. There were no thresholds that were outside the range. And I'm going to improve them. I'm doing a research project now of taking about 3 to 4 ounces of urine and drinking it before I go to bed at night. And a month from now, I'm going to take another blood test and compare the results. So that's the way I do research here. I'm a researcher first and foremost.
And at least you don't do it to other people. You actually take part in it yourself.
Well, I tell you what, many of my patients are urine therapists. They have seen the essay at BiomedX, that's BIOMED and the letter X.com. There's an essay there on urine therapy. You spin down the site. There's an icon there for urine therapy. I send people to that, and I tell them if they're not drinking their own urine tonight by midnight, they're brain dead. Because this explains how effective it is. And I know, Nickie, you've used a little bit of this, and you probably have seen the benefits already, if I'm not mistaken.
Sorry, yeah, I was answering the phone. I had a phone call. I had to give it to my son. I didn't hear you. I apologize.
Okay. I'm saying that you've tried some urine therapy and probably have seen the benefits already?
Yeah, not to that extreme, no, but yes.
Okay. Well, I've been doing urine therapy since I was introduced to it 10 years ago. Last summer, I was introduced to fecal therapy, which they have validated at Montefiore Medical Research in New York, and they're starting a program here in Chicago of taking a small amount of fecal matter, putting it in a bottle with some water, shaking it 10 times, dumping it all out, and just add the water back in, a small amount of water. Cap the bottle, shake it. You do that 10 times. After the 10th time, you dump that water a little bit out, put in about 4 or 5 ounces of water, and Drink it down. This is homeopathy. They've been doing this since 1847. Like cures like. We can wipe out the cholera epidemic in Haiti in probably 24 to 48 hours with this technique, with the Doctors Without Borders down there and the homeopathic people that are down there, the doctors that are there. Doctors Without Borders are not allowed to practice in the United States. Doctors Without Borders can go to other countries from the United States, but they are not permitted to treat or diagnose or help people in the United States. This is a union, a very, very corrupt union of the AMA, the American Medical Association. And do you have a comment on that, Bruce?
No, it's interesting. I'm just learning, so it's not anything I can comment on.
Yeah, it's a little hard here in the U.S. We tend to, even with sexuality, it tends to be pushed down as opposed to European nations. Seriously, it's more common. And if you think about it, and I know this is kind of probably an extreme example, but when you mention like the use of, course, when you added menstrual blood to that, if you look at the old, I don't want to use the word magic because that tends to send people up in arms, but researching through elements and things of that nature, it tends to bring out that that was used in the past, back in when people were more connected with the earth. And actually, the stories and their experience were passed on through what is now referred to spells. But I'm here to tell you that you don't need anything like that. We have the power within. That has to do with needing a physical representation to your world for your own mindset. But
well, Nickie, you bring up sexuality too, and I think this might be a good time to bring up the trouble we had with YouTube in trying to introduce the cure for breast cancer, which is
that's right. And we'll have to do this really, really fast because we're at the top of the hour and I got to take a quick break as well. But I had put up a video for Doc Mike on my YouTube channel. There is a video up there now that describes how YouTube took it down. The problem was with YouTube, and those who are familiar with that, when you upload a video, you're only given 3 choices of thumbnails to choose. Right. And the video, of course, had a cure for, massage therapy. And it is definitely necessary. And he even shows how to show the woman how to do it herself. So that's the whole idea, is for you to be able to help yourself and how you can fix most issues, including rejuvenating once you reach past a certain age. It's not a negative thing, and it was not sexual in content in the slightest. But it was taken down, but we had 964 views in less than 48 hours.
Right. Hey, you can put it up on my site. You know, I have my own videos on my site. They don't go through YouTube.
This is our plan.
Did you know that, Nickie? Did you notice that when you went to my site?
I didn't know that yet, so that's awesome to know.
Okay.
Well,
let's get that done.
The secret video is on my site. It's not going through YouTube. When you watch that secret video, you are watching. All you have to do is upload it to YouTube, and you tell me exactly when you do it. So before they can take it down, I download it, and I download it onto my site, and nobody can mess with it.
That's cool.
How about if I
can put it on a separate link and do it. That's not a problem.
All right. How about if I send Bruce? How about if I send you a copy of the DVD, and then you can go straight to your secret video.
Yeah, exactly. I can put it directly up. I can just link it directly up.
What? Give me your phone number.
We'll do that in a minute. I'll put y'all aside in a second. Doc Mike, do you want to go ahead and
I've got a patient that's going to call me in a few minutes. But Nick, can you tell our listeners right now in less than 20 seconds, say how to get to the video today?
Well, today there is not a current way. We are working on putting it up in a site so that we have a location to be able to link to.
All right. But you'll have it maybe next week?
By the end of the week. Like before the end of the week, it will be up.
Wonderful. Okay. And what's your phone number, Bruce? I want to give you a call.
We'll do that on the site in a second. Stuff like you want to get your radio information and your time for tonight real fast and website, and I'll self decide and you can take care of that.
Okay. Oh, hold on 1 second. Be right back.
Okay. Well, for those that are listening, you can find Doc Mike at American Sleep Radio, and that's www.american freedomizerradio.com.
Right.
And he'll be on at 5 p.m. Central, that's 6 p.m. Eastern, and that makes it 3 p.m. on the West Coast.
Right.
And hopefully you can figure out anything else in between.
Right.
And he can be found at www.wakeupwell.org as well, and his phone number, he does prefer personal contact, so you will have to speak with the man. That's a very positive thing. And the phone number is 630-322-8880.
Right. Okay. And Bruce, can you give me your phone number?
We'll do that in just a second. I'll put it on the side. Hold on 1 second.
Okay.
And Freedomizers, we're going to take a quick break. So let me do this. Let me find the song. I apologize. I wasn't prepared completely. Where's Gaza? We'll do this. Hang in there, Freedomizers.
This is a control grid to track and trace and make it a second-class citizen. They're going to decide what sites you visit, and they're only going to allow a couple thousand sites. 99% of the web will be off-limits.
So busy on the side feeling freedom of speech. Politicians seem out of reach. You can find them nude on the beach. Lots of rights we had done were breached. Ask Rosie why not can teach. These sides are glowing with greed. All they see is green in between. Men feeding the sheep with TV. The gully up, they still don't believe. USA grade. Now the tramp and earth in charade. Stand there to talk their perspective. New concepts locked into graves. Feed upon the sick and delayed. Don't you listen, don't you behave. Demon camps are built on the way. Knock down before they invade. Spread the word and don't be afraid. Lots of tanks filled up with grenades. All they care is how they get paid.
Nickie Nix here with you as we try to rise above dehumanization. And of course we still have Bruce Kettler with us. Hi, Bruce.
Hi, I'm glad to be here. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity.
I appreciate you sticking with me for so long.
That's quite all right. I'm enjoying every bit of it.
Awesome. We actually looks like we have another caller that wants to add in a comment, so I'm going to go ahead and bring them in. 775 area code?
Fuck you.
Okay, that was nice. Moving on then. Alright, open the door. Don't you just just love things like that. I'm going to play a quick clip and something I thought you might like as well. Let's see where to go. All right, and we can discuss this as that because I truly also do a statism, but it also shows the different controlling methods that are used on different avenues of every society. So hang in there.
When I was a kid, I used to get National Geographic every month. And like most boys, I immediately scanned its contents for Amazon boobies. This is how I learned what an essential technological advance the Wonder Bra really is. Scattered around these swinging boobs were strange stone statues that looked sort of like comic book characters. These pygmies would sometimes kneel and pray and chant and sing to them, which always made me smile. To them, it was a powerful and eternal god. To me, it was just, well, a giant stone cow. There are over 10,000 gods around the world, which look pretty ridiculous to just about everyone. If you weren't raised with them, they have no emotional resonance, no mythological power. They just look sort of like breakfast cereal cartoon characters gone wild.
Silly rabbit.
About 50 times a day, I am asked how we're going to stop using hierarchical violence to slowly destroy our world, our economy, and ourselves, and start building peaceful and voluntary solutions to complex social problems. The answer is very easy. Every moral evolution in history has been preceded by incomprehension and followed by incomprehension. Slavery, the subjugation of women and children, the denial of property rights, all seemed perfectly normal until they were vanquished. And afterwards, it is hard to believe that such evils ever existed at all. The same goes for a stateless society. It only looks impossible because a truly free and peaceful society has yet to be achieved. But once we get there, and we will, people will look back at governments as ridiculous, bloody, and evil hangovers from the primitive and drunken adolescence of our species. Your government cannot protect your property by stealing half of it first. It cannot protect your life by threatening you with endless, violent edicts. It cannot protect your money by forcing you to use a currency that it counterfeits at will. It cannot protect your children by sealing them up in 18th century mental prisons for years while selling their futures off to the highest bidder. Foreign gods always look silly, and statism is just another religion. Statism has its churches, its symbols, its deities, its rewards and punishments, and it relies on the control and abuse of children. The parallels are obvious and endless. So how do we end statism? Well, exactly the same way that we end religion. By revealing it as just another giant stone cow. If you don't grow up kneeling beneath the grim shadow of some foreign god, it looks ridiculous and so has no power over you. If you don't grow up speaking Esperanto, it just sounds like gibberish. To save the world, to free the world, to end war and imprisonment and abuse and torture and indoctrination and enslavement and the taxes and debts that enable all such evils, we need to stop teaching our children the language of the state. If we raise our children without aggression, without raising our voices, without raising our hands, without bullying, without control, without punishment and manipulation, with gentleness and firmness and love, they will never fear authority. They will never submit to a brutal hierarchy. And they will never accept the moral authority of those who call themselves the state. Our children will clearly see the evil foolishness of institutional violence because it will come as a shock and a surprise to them, instead of, as is so often the case now, an inevitable extension of how they are raised. Violence is a language we must unlearn. The only
Okay, I'm going to leave it right there, and we are back with Bruce Kettler. So what do you think about the whole idea there? Like, okay, baby, I'll teach you something in a second.
Well, yeah, you've got the indoctrination centers, which Charlotte Iserby, he covered that. What Charlotte Iserby writes about in her book, The Deliberate Dumbing Down, which, by the way, is a free PDF file.
It is. I apologize. No, that's good. We actually have another call, and I'm going to check this real quick. So you want to make one more statement? I'm going to take one to your screening room before that happens again. You want to give everybody, like, your information, your website, and all that kind of good stuff?
Oh, okay. The website is World Peace Alliance. World Peace Alliance is hyphens in between each word, .com. And that's really all anybody needs. There's a link on the link page to the We Are Change site. And that's about it. It's about finding world peace in the outside manifest physical world by first having peace within us. All of us.
First, I'm going to bring in one person real quick. Mike, he's from Brazil.
Hey, Nicole?
Yes, we're here.
Yes, I can listen quite clear, you know. I'm going to have to turn off because I can listen. You know, the connection is not very good, but I just want to congratulate the show. You're from Portugal. We are supporting you guys over there. It's only that, okay? Show. Okay?
Thank
Bye.
you so much, Mike. I appreciate it. Have a good night.
Okay, I will continue to listen. It's not very clear, but I will continue, okay?
Thank
Keep
you
up
so
the good
much.
work. Bye. Bye.
Where's he from? Where's he from?
See, we are actually reaching areas most people wouldn't think.
Where? Where is he?
Portugal.
Oh, Portugal. Okay, good.
And see, for those actually, and since he is listening, I don't talk about this often. Actually, I don't think I've ever mentioned it. My father he's Romanian Gypsy and Portuguese, actually. Portuguese royalty. From what I understand, my grandmother was the granddaughter of an exiled Portuguese princess or something that fell in love with a commoner, and she got exiled, and they followed her to California and blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, I'm actually, and then my mom's stepdaughter is German, but yeah, Portuguese royalty and Romanian Gypsy.
Yeah, I'm a mixture of Irish, German, and Russian. Father and grandfather came from Russia.
Mm-hmm.
My mother's mother came from Germany. My mother's father from Russia.
Very nice. And see, that's the thing. People don't tend to realize. We always have to go through, I'm French, I'm Mexican, I'm African. You know, it's like nobody is completely one thing truly anymore. And that in itself should show you that we are the same. Because no two same entities can sexually reproduce, at least not in a viable form, unless we are truly the same thing. That in itself should show people the connections that we have, not only to each other, but to the world around us. The water alone. Think about this. The earth has 70% water. Human body pretty much corresponds exactly to that percentage. That in itself shows the connection that we have to this earth. And if you want to talk about water, we were talking about ions and the way things respond. There's been new science in the field of quantum mechanics, quantum physics, quantum reality. It's come to have been a big bang, it may have been a big wave, whatever was at the beginning, everything was combined as one. And as it spread, there was still a connection because everything is still the same. And that is what science is finding now. Science is all of a sudden finding spirituality and finding that we are connected, we are the same, and we can truly affect and have an effect not only on the world around us, but on ourselves. Of course, we should start there.
Oh, yeah, we start with ourselves for sure.
Even if just to build confidence, to let you know that you are truly having an effect. Because sometimes we doubt ourselves. Doubt comes from fear and from guilt, something that is pushed on us from government, from religion, from just about every source except within ourselves. We tend to accept that as who we are.
Parents, yeah, it's dumped on us through parents, too.
Yeah, that's true. But parents are no longer even taking responsibility for their kids. They would rather have 2 car payments, a mortgage, everything else. Instead of buying things outright like we used to. It used to, unless you could afford it, you didn't have it. It's not that you went into debt to this interest-based system, which the monetary system through the Federal Reserve is completely interest-based. When it is first printed out of the presses, it comes to the American people with interest owed. So how does this benefit anyone here? How does that accomplish anything for people here except the fact that, oh, you want to speak of something? Look at what Jesus said in the New Testament. He said interest is the evil. That if you ever lend some money to a friend or to a neighbor, never charge interest. That leads to evil. Look what the Federal Reserve is doing to the American people.
Well, yeah, they definitely have been for 100 years doing it to them.
And okay, there is one subject I wanted to cover that actually Chuck Mike brought up. But the whole 9/11 thing, this whole idea that for me personally, this was before I I was on the path to learning this direction, but when 9/11 happened, I spent 2 weeks at home watching TV. It was the first time that I remember in my life ever feeling a sense of patriotism, a sense of standing behind America. And it was very hard to come to the realization of what happened. I tried to ignore it when being showed more than once, when I am very open to most things given to me, because I truly had faith in it. And when you step back and have to destroy a foundation that you have, that's been a part of your life, and that you take as a core belief, then it's something you don't want to look into. You don't want to question. You don't want to keep an open mind to see something that may not have been present in the first place. That is why we need to look around us, to not be limited by a government or by a religious dogma that says that you are evil if you do this, or because man says this is wrong. What we need to do is take from it the core truth that exists in every myth, that exists in every handed-down story that tells of our history, that tells of our past, that tells of who we are as human beings. We should take that and then learn for ourselves, research to what finds a resonance with truth in our life. And Bruce,
Exactly.
you are very much one to spread that.
Well, yeah, I'm glad you said that. Some of these things need to be said again and again. I know myself when I say things to myself that I already know, they work a lot better if I remind myself of those things. And certainly, I'm on a learning curve, and so are we all. But learning through experience, not through reading or repeating statements.
We should never stop. I always read, and one of my favorite authors was Stephen King. And I only say this because of it's okay, son. I only say this because of the number of Stephen King films that have made it into mainstream media. the thing is that I've read most of his books long before they came into film. And to read a book and then watch it on the movie screen was, I was seriously disappointed every time. I learned never read before you watch something if you ever intend to watch it. Because TV and someone else's opinion forced in and edited and changed and made their own, no matter what, changes the essence of the story. And now, in TV and movies, children and teenagers and adults are being shown things like Greek mythology and others, but they change it slightly. The gods change. The story slightly changes. And people take that as what was originally stated and never, ever read a book. People go to high school and get book assignments and then watch a movie instead of actually reading the English text. And they never take anything away except for what was shown to them for one sense. Well, two, hearing and visual. That leaves out quite a lot of senses, and we only assume there's 5 in the first place, so.
Quite true.
Have you seen this confusion that seems to be going on? I'm disconnected from TV and everything else, so.
Yeah, that's true. That's all very true.
Well, I wanted to get into the 9/11 things because there was a big deception that went through all of that, but there's some things that people don't seem to pay attention to. We automatically went into arms saying that Al-Qaeda is such a bad thing, you know? And we assume that they are so different from the people here. And Al-Qaeda, such a term, it was, from what I understand, an FBI database name.
No, CIA. It was a CIA database name. It was actually Al-Qaeda is created by the CIA. And remember the name that I was talking about that I said to that guy, he was talking about some Dr. Brzezinski.
Mm-hmm.
And I said the guy needs to change his name. I was joking, of course. But Brzezinski is the guy who created Al-Qaeda. He used the CIA. He was instrumental in the creation of the CIA, many years, of Al-Qaeda years ago. And nobody ever heard of Al-Qaeda until 9/11. I never heard the word. You know, it was like it was a database, and you know, it's a big joke to them. They laugh about it. Like, they think it's very funny. You know, it's so ridiculous what they did on 9/11, and the whole propaganda spiel that came about. Just insane. They got people that believe this crap. Now, here's the thing. I got to ridicule myself, too, because I believe it, too. I'm in the same boat with you, Nickie, same boat. I welcome to the club. I believe it, too. How could you not believe the television? My God, the television speaks to you. It's the ultimate authority. It's God. Didn't you know? How dare you blaspheming? You're blaspheming the television set by having doubts of the religion of television. My God, don't you believe God?
It takes more hours than the church seems to, doesn't it?
Oh, my God, yes. It does a much better job on the brain. It does it through the flicker rate, the rate at which it flickers on screen.
Yes,
That's
which can show features and some that are sensitive to it.
It's a hypnotic trance. People sit there, and if you ever watch somebody watching TV, every now and then you'll see their mouth droop open. They'll just like kind of hang there, you know. It's like, yes, master, yes, master. Whatever you say, you're my master. It's kind of like one of the guru worshippers in the 60s. Actually the 70s. I was kind of intrigued when I was living in Boulder at the guru worshippers. And they actually believed that this 13-year-old kid was God incarnate. I mean, not a God, but the God, you know. And I was asking these people, you really believe this 13-year-old kid is God? You know, and I had a friend living in Boulder, and people would go to him. He was really into metaphysics, and he was very well educated. He had a PhD in psychology. And people would go to him and say, you know that God just came into town? You need to come see him. You know, you need to listen to him. You need to be on the stage, listen to him. And he said, I have no need to go to this auditorium to watch this gibbering idiot, you know. Gibbering idiot, it's God, you know. So one day he said...
So was Jim Jones, apparently, so hey.
Yeah, really. It was in the 1971. And he was in the newspapers all over the country. He was an Indian kid that got tremendous promotion. And he was I listened to him once. I went to and I was well versed in Eastern philosophy. And, you know, I understood Eastern philosophy very well. You know, if a real master was speaking, you know, I pretty well understood that, you know, he really knew what he was talking about. The vibes, plus, you know, he was coherent and he was talking the right stuff. Well, this guy was he was a gibbering idiot. I mean, you know, I'm going, these people must be stupid and believe this crap, you know. But anyway, I went there and this friend of mine, he said, you tell him to come see me. I'm not going to listen to him. And so the guy never came around. So then he said, all right, look, you believe he's God, right? And he said, yeah. Okay, he said, number one, he wears a watch. Why does he wear a watch if he's God? God is the creator of time. You know, why does he wear a watch? And then he says, why does he need this secretary? No, this airline stewardess to marry. At that point, he wasn't 13 anymore. He was like 16 or something. Why does he need to marry this airline stewardess? He's got a screwed up love life. He can't even maintain the marriage. And it's like, you know, he's a crazy mixed up kid. His hormones are out of control. And he thinks he wants to marry the airline stewardess because, you know, he met her on the airline. How can you trust a 16-year-old, you know, for judgment on a lifelong thing like marriage, you know? And certainly he's not God if he needs an airline stewardess. Anyway, he really gave it to this crowd of people that was in his living room. And then he said, this is what he said. He said, I'm going to show you an astronomy book. And he shows us astronomy book. Do you realize the extent of the known universe? And he said, billions and billions and billions and billions of light years away. And you know what a light year is? It takes a whole year with the speed of light to travel there. And nobody can go at the speed of light. So, you know, he says, you can't ever get there. It's like that's the end of the universe that we know, and then beyond that there's more. And then he says, you're going to tell me that this 13-year-old kid can't keep his love life together. He's got a freaking watch to tell what time it is. And he can't even do a coherent sentence in English. And he runs this whole freaking thing. He says, you people are nuts. Get the hell out of here. This is a friend of mine in Boulder. His name is Richard Sigismund. I thought it was the funniest story I ever heard in my life. I mean, that was quite a comeback for God, right?
Yeah, you can't conceive on anything in the micro, but the macro is quite a concept, so yeah.
Yeah, I mean, God incarnate, you know, 13 years old, kid. I listened to him once, I watched him on the stage, and I said, this guy has got some good publicity people, because he's not doing a very good job on his own, you know.
You know, something people seem to forget is that, as the scriptures say, as above, so below. And what exists that is so magnificently unending, because we only conceive things on linear concepts, on linear terms, as I am born, I die. Not that I have always been, I am, and always will be. But this whole concept that the closer they look into a cell, there's still more to see. No matter how little they find things, there's still something beyond it. Because there's still something that goes beyond everything we find in the universe. There's so much more than we could ever possibly have the time to discover. But
right, well, that's why we're growing in this life. And right now, the world is, this whole earth is in a state of enormous transformation. The people spiritually are evolving very rapidly. They're evolving more in one one day than they did in years, just 50 years ago. Individually, each one is evolving. And the world, the situation is such that people are waking up by osmosis. They're not even waking up because of flyers and DVDs so much as just by osmosis.
Or something. Yep. 1,000 chimpanzees have the same skill, and all of a sudden, without being taught, every community, not even one country, one state, but anywhere there's a chimp, will all of a sudden know that skill. It's all of a sudden spreading.
Right, it's all of a sudden known.
Yep.
And in that wake-up call regarding the vaccinations 2 years ago, where the activists were going out, giving out papers to people, they were doing it in Australia, all throughout Europe, they woke the people up. But then when we reached a critical mass, it was like in the air. It was like, it wasn't like people were going, oh, don't tell me that silly stuff. They were going, I knew it inside. I knew it. I just knew it. Thank you for giving me this to verify what I felt inside. It was like, and I witnessed it. I was giving out papers on the streets, going into stores and giving them to people and walking down the street, giving it to people. And I witnessed it, that they knew. It was like they knew. They weren't ridiculing me. They were going, I knew this. I just knew it. I don't know how I knew it. That don't take any shots. I knew it. And of course, those shots 2 years ago and last season were worse than any shots that have ever been given. And we would have had a pandemic worldwide if the people hadn't woken up as quick as they did.
That's the thing. See, this natural healing, this ability of the body, when vaccines or things of that nature introduced into the body, they aren't exactly introduced in ways of natural, the way you would encounter it in nature. We put it into the muscle, into the bloodstream, into anything other than the breathing it or swallowing it, which would be a way we normally would encounter it. And then we expect the body to naturally be able to, accept that form? What if we did in the natural way, the way it would normally process this kind of product?
Well, my father and mother divorced when I was 6. When I was 5 years old, there was a doctor who would come to the house. Those days they did house calls. And he'd give me a shot of penicillin because I was sick. I had pneumonia. I had a really bad, bronchial condition or something. And I hated needles. It was this instinct. I was revolted at the idea that he was not only going to stick that needle in my arm, but he was also, it wasn't the pain. It was more than that. I just instinctively knew I shouldn't be injecting anything. And in those days it was penicillin, which compared to what they're putting into people today, inoculations, that was not nearly as bad if you didn't take too much of it, if you didn't use it too often. But I didn't want anything stuck in my body because I knew anything you stick in my body, unless I'm in the hospital and, I've just been run over by a car, in those instances for trauma, there needs to be all kinds of invasive things done to you, including breaking your body open and whatever, if you're internally bleeding or whatever. And there are things they have to stick in your bloodstream just to keep you alive. It's a whole other story. But, you got a cold or something, you don't stick needles in my arm, And I was like, Daddy, why do I have to take this? And I was like, because the doctor said so. Oh, by the way, yeah, right. I said, well, the doctor said so. I was like, no. I just said to myself, this is crap. They're going to make me do it. I'll have to do it. So I let him do it. But, I knew it was wrong. I just do it instinctively. I just knew it.
It's just, exactly. That's the thing we all have the ability to do. That little doubt sometimes. When you're standing in line to do something, and you feel, maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe you should trust your very first thought and walk away. That's the thing we've lost. These abilities we used to have, like the human brain and DNA. Most people don't realize that since the Human Genome Project that happened, 96, 97, since they started that and have been continually understanding the different triggers and effects that DNA has on the body. 80% of DNA that we currently have is what's considered junk DNA, is not active, does not actually have an effect. But there are words and things you can take and energies in the earth and elsewhere that can help activate or turn on those DNA triggers to allow abilities that we all have, that all it takes is a little practice and a little belief to be able to do it.
Exactly. You're right. You're right about that, yes. We need to trust, what our instincts are telling us, either through our DNA or through other things that come into our body, like intuitively, our connectedness to all things. That's intuition. And then, of course, the DNA within us. And, when they say, you have a gut feeling about this or that, that gut feeling is your DNA working.
Exactly. And now science even shows there is an energy source within human bodies. There always has been. And it even sparks. It is a light. And that is what was within us. And that is like a power source, like a mitochondria inside a cell. The power source of the cell that gives it energy, that gives it the capability to do what it does. We all have that inner spark. Anything that is low, that is micro, also exists in a larger form above, within us, and beyond us. We tend to ignore the fact that we are so connected to everything, to everyone, and that yes, what we do influences our reality. What we do influences the world and those that exist in the world. And we don't want to take responsibility. Responsibility is the key.
Right. We are all connected to everyone, but there's certain ways some of us are connected to certain individuals, more profoundly. And that's what brings the phenomenon of soulmates into focus. And the way that certain individuals connect with certain individuals better than they do other people, and have different kinds of feelings and attraction, connection with that individual than they do with other people.
And it's not about like meeting like, because people also confuse balance. We think negative and positive have to balance. But if you think of it mathematically, if you see something that it equals, because an equation, you have to make the left side of the equal sign equal the right side of the equal sign to where they negate each other. They make it non-existent on both sides. That's the thing. That makes everything makes it not exist in the very first moment that creation started. What we need to realize is that imbalance is what keeps things going. The concept of pi, that decimal point that has no predictable continuation past it, and the number just keeps continuing. That is what allows existence and allows us to be here. It is not perfect balance. It is balance in imbalance that sees things true. And to realize that good and evil are not opposing forces so much as a different side of the same coin. They are part of the same and necessary, but not one is not good and one is not bad. That is a matter of perception, a matter of our own reality. But hey, I passed my break. I'm actually going to do something that I usually don't do, but I'm going to, for those that are here with us today, I'm actually going to play the clip I put on YouTube yesterday. I'm sorry, I almost started coughing. I apologize. The reason why I'm doing that is because I keep saying this the last few shows, that 2011, in my opinion, is such a time for us to make a change. And I feel it, and I cannot help but try to let people know that 2012 is not the end of things, that 2011 is the time to affect the coming age, not the end of an age. But with all destruction comes creation, and there is no creation without destruction. These things are very much necessary for one to exist and for the other to exist. It is a cycle, not linear. It is not a beginning and an end. This is like the spiral that never meets, the perfect circle, the pie, the balance and imbalance. So that is what this clip helps. Well, this is my take on it. This is my opinion. I'm not saying this is what works for everyone, but this is the hope and the faith that I have. So Freedomizers, hang in there. Hello everyone, Nickie here. Hope you're enjoying what is a Tuesday, a beautiful January day. I just wanted to share something quickly with all my friends and maybe the people that listen to my radio show, Rise Above Dehumanization on Freedomizer Radio as well. But there's something I keep continuing to speak about when it comes to 2011, about actually manifesting your own reality and having the effect on the world and the joint matrix that we are creating with our willful thoughts, conscious, subconscious wishes, hopes, dreams, and sadly the control factors of this nation and the powers that be tend to hold over us at this moment in time are keeping people from realizing their ability to create their own reality. So I'm going to make a quick introduction video, and there will be more coming. And this is all my opinion. And it just takes a little open mind to stretch the imagination, to stretch knowledge, or curiosity a little bit further than what you may be accustomed to currently. But we all feel this change. So what I wanted to say was, there is a way. And all we need to do is go through the lie, the deception, the sleight of hand that seems to overwhelmingly permeate this nation, and sadly seems to be rapidly increasing worldwide, or at least on a global standpoint. And whether we are wanting this new world order or this global community it is coming, the thing is that we have an ability to affect it. We have an ability to realize that we don't need governmental control. We don't need religious control. We don't need a nanny state, a mom and dad saying, do this, go to this, follow the dots, A, B, C, D, to get to the end that they require, that they want. We don't need to do that. But there is something happening right now, something I see, and I hope you see it too. There is a new driving force, how do you put it? A renewed passion, awakening within mankind as a whole, every bit of mankind. This passionate curiosity combined with unlimited imagination is honestly what makes humans such powerful, beautiful, amazing creatures. This world, this existence, this life, this reality is only here for us to experience. We truly are God in physical form. So, let us focus on our capabilities, which with a little nurturing and practice will transform your dreams into reasonable, reachable goals. Let us focus on our connection to each other, to the world, to life, existence, and yes, even within ourselves. This will transform your concept of communication and travel to a state where just the simple process your own capabilities. Just takes a different way to see things. Let us focus on possibilities, which will transform the preconceived illusion of the impossible into nothing more than simple questions that spark the awesome phoenix of human curiosity and imagination. That will change the world. When you change someone's way of thinking, when you change the way they see the world that they are a part of, then they all of a sudden expand their own existence. They reach beyond the limits set by society, set by religion, set even by themselves. We tend to limit ourselves more so than any other force of the will. You are powerful. You are amazing. You are beautiful. And this year, 2011, is the time to show it, to make a difference in your life, in the life around you, in this existence. No longer should we step out and look around and say, this is too overwhelming, I wish to go home. I wish to hide in my corner and be nothing more than entertained by programming. Maybe human curiosity and imagination have finally become bored with watching someone else create life. All right, Freedom, more to come. Yeah, more to come. Seriously, it's just something I truly feel, and I'm not one to back down from what I feel. When I feel something, I'm very much there. Hence why I am here with y'all today. Our paths lead us to where we go, and whether we realize it or not, your mere thoughts actually affect your world. How many people have called into work and said they had a headache, said they were sick, and then by the end of the day actually were? We have a tendency to actually manifest things we desire, things we speak into being. But that's okay, because that shows you that you are real, that you are affected by the world around you, not just you living in your own head. But again, this is all my opinion. Everybody should take from it what they will and find out for yourself. But Bruce, I hope you're still with us there.
Well, I saw that originally, and I listened to it again, and it's all very true. And I think the expression of your feeling and your knowledge was wonderful. I think it was very helpful probably to a lot of people to be reminded of the power that they have to affect their world. And that their opinions and their feelings and their abilities are very much needed, very valued by all of us. And that's generally my breakdown of what you were saying, and I feel like it's very valid.
That is awesome. But I also like the fact that we don't have to live within society's concept of living. We don't have to live in apartment buildings stacked 12 stories high. We can actually exist without being attached to the so-called grid. And there are possibilities, but we need to explore those. And that takes the curiosity to see that there is something beyond what we see on a daily basis. And you are actually one of those, you live off the grid. That in itself should give hope to others.
Well, yes, for the last 6.5 years, I have not had any electrical wires or any water pipes or any kind of connection here except through the satellite. It's all through the air, and I'm talking to you through airwaves right now, not through any wires that are coming from where I live. And my electricity is produced through the sunlight and through the through the wind that generates. And when I don't have enough of that, which is, depending on what equipment I have hooked up, how often that happens, then of course I use a gasoline generator as a backup. And so that's how I've been living. And I've been learning how to live through experiments. I've learned how to live if the supermarket gets cut off. If they ever turn into long lines at the supermarket, you gotta, get an ID card or something to go to the supermarket or whatever they plan on doing or whatever they might do. I've learned how to be able to handle myself because I ain't going to the communist supermarket.
That makes support.
The Soviet Union food dispensary. I'm not going there. I ain't going there.
Everyone to standing in bread lines quite quickly or living in FEMA camps, accepting your food stamp card to get your rations for the day.
Yeah, I'm not interested in that. I've learned ways to get water, either filters, using lakes or streams, use a filter, or a muddy pond, you can use a filter. The filters are portable, they can be carried in a backpack, and they have a limited lifespan depending on what kind of water you use, as to how long they'll last. If it's muddy water, they're not going to last too long as if you go to a lake. But I've learned ways to get water. I've learned where all the water is around here. And I've learned how to get water out of the ground. There's not much, there aren't that many ingredients you need to get water out of the ground without digging a well. There's actually water in the ground almost everywhere you go. It's not in drinkable form. It's all in the moisture, but you have to learn to turn that moisture that's in the ground into water. And you can carry the equipment for getting that moisture out of that ground. You can carry it in your backpack. Did you know that, Nickie?
Actually, I didn't know that they were that portable.
Well, yeah, you can get it out of the ground. All you need is a small shovel that folds three ways. You want it to fold three ways so it'll fit in your backpack. Or it'll fit on the outside of your backpack, strapped maybe with a bungee cord to your backpack. You need that shovel. Then you need some drop cloth, clear drop cloth from the hardware store. You don't want the plastic kind that's colored because that dye will get in the water and it's not good for you.
Chemicals, more chemicals.
More chemicals. You want to get a drop cloth that's clear. It's the cloth. It's actually what it is plastic that's clear that they put on the floor rather while you're painting, so you don't get paint on the floor. And you go to the hardware store, you get some drop cloth. And in the hardware store, you also get a tubing that's made of plastic. Plastic tubing. And, you get like 5 feet of that. And then you get what you normally use is kitchen utensils, what you carry, well, they're not really kitchen, but camping utensils, like a pot and a pan, and all those things you carry in your backpack so you can cook on a fire, Well, you carry those with you anyway, so you have like a pot, that you would normally cook soup in, And at that point, you got enough to get water out of the ground. When you have those ingredients, you can get water. Now, you should do this in the sunlight, because what happens is the sun will draw the water up. It'll draw it up and condense it on the drop cloth, which is on the top of a hole that you just dug. But it's not on the top of the hole. You got to put it down a little bit and throw a rock in it, so it's like a cone shape. You throw a rock in it. And then you throw rocks around it, so it doesn't fall into the hole. Okay, what's going to happen is that because you're in the sunlight, all that moisture that's in that hole is going to condense onto that drop cloth underneath. And it's going to drip down into the pan. Now, if you're really thirsty, you don't want to wait till the pan's full. what you want to do is you want to stick that long tube, plastic tube down there and suck it out. But anyway, you don't wait till the last minute to do that because you run out of energy. You always have plenty of water in reserve before you actually do that so that you can use that water to keep yourself going while you're doing all this labor. And boy, it is labor intensive.
Well,
but
that's what
if you
I think
dig a bunch of holes, you're going to get a lot of water. What?
I think the monetary system should be based on maybe man's ability as opposed to having to have a separate thing. I think our labor, our ability to do something is so much more valuable than anything else.
Right. Well, by the way, that'll keep you alive. But you want to make your way to a stream or to a lake, or hopefully you'll get some rain and some puddles, and if you can do that and have filters, you should always have filters in addition to this, so that you can get whatever water that you can find in ponds, lakes, streams, wherever you can find it. A lot of times you'll have a nice big heavy rain and, big puddles all over the place, because if you're out in the wilderness, you're always going to find those places where the puddles will start to build up. And that can be good drinking water if you have a filter. If you don't have a filter, use a towel and try to filter it through the towel, or some kind of shirt or something like that, a woolen shirt. But anyway, that's the first thing you need is water. And, of course, there's food all over the place. There's rabbits, there's, I don't care where you are, there's rabbits, there's snakes, there's all kinds of stuff out there to keep you alive. And that's the whole idea, stay alive.
Exactly. And most people don't even realize there's nutrients in the dirt. So there are ways. May not be appealing, but there are always ways. We're almost out of time. Is there anything you wanted to be sure to cover or talk about before we say goodbye?
Well, yeah, just that there's a story in the Matrix trilogy, in the last part of the Matrix trilogy. Neo is the spiritual guy, and the rest of them are all mechanical people, feeling that everything is physical and that the only way they can withstand the tyrants is physically. And Neo knows the answer. And there's probably 3 people in the whole show that really, maybe 4, that actually know the answer of how they're going to get out of this. And the answer was spiritual. And that is the way we're going to get out of this. It's not through, some of it is preparation, but to a great extent it's a spiritual battle. And we need to have our spiritual house in order to beat these people. And that's why I want everybody to go to worldpeacealliance.com and find out what I'm talking about, because it's not just hocus pocus. Today it is science. It is science. It's quantum
It is amazing.
mechanics. That's my message. Anything else?
No, I'm quite happy.
What's new from you? What's new from you?
Me, I've studied my whole life. I was very technical in most of my things. And to me, to see science catching up to spirituality, to realizing that things are connected, has definitely had a major, profound effect on my outlook of my reality.
Good. Great.
I love that. But hey, Freedomizers, we're just about out of time now. And we've got Joanne Moretti coming up with some Moretti reports. And you can find other hosts with Freedomizer Radio at www.freedomizerradio.com. And you are with, well, we're about to say goodbye, of course, to Bruce Kettler. And you can find him, you did go over your website, right? I don't want to repeat it. So like you said, you can find him at World Peace Alliance with dashes in between each word.com. And then I don't know how to say the name of your county, so weird change, and I don't know the rest of that word. Herfano?
Well, if you go to World Peace Alliance and you go to the links page, you'll see a picture of a bunch of mountains. Click on that. That's easier to remember than trying to describe that website.
Thank you.
I mean, first of all, it's not even spelled the way it sounds. It sounds like huérfano, which is a Spanish word that means orphan. Huérfano. but it doesn't spell the same. It doesn't spell the same. So I try to just steer clear of it and say, go to the links page and click on the picture of the mountains.
Awesome. That's always beautiful. Click on the nature.
Yeah, click on, right. Yeah, I took that picture. Yeah.
See, personal to boot. So everybody, this has been Bruce Kettler, and this is Nickie, and this has been Rise Above Dehumanization. Joanne Reddy coming up. I'm going to play a quick song, and we'll see you on Friday as well. So freedomizers, keep freedomizing freedom.
Federal Reserve, you've been living hell to me. You've been robbing me since 1913. You'll run the presses till the ink is dry. Long ago, I stopped asking why. Federal Reserve, I hate every inch of you. You robbed me and you cheated me through and through. Now